Chapter 2391, Replacement, 3, Vice President, Yi Qingtang knew that Wen Qi was going to send someone over. But, she never expected that someone to be Song Yanhan. Zhu Ning had taught Song Yanhan his alchemy skills. If not for Yun Chen, he would definitely be the Netherworld Academy's only hope. With someone of his caliber, Wu Fengling should have already assigned him to a team. One of Song Yanhan's teammates is injured and has yet to recover. I am afraid he won't be able to participate in the team competition, Wen Qi sighed in frustration. The teenager who performed the best amongst the Netherworld Academy students for the martial arts segment was in Song Yanhan's team. He had given his best but ended up being severely injured, so there was no possibility that he could not continue competing. With one person down, Song Yanhan's team would not be able to qualify for the team competition. Under Zhu Ning's suggestion, Wen Qi decided to send Song Yanhan over to Yi Qing's team. Of course, they could always replace that severely injured teenager with Qiu Nan, but Qiu Nan had already been transferred to his teacher's team. There were also other teams with members too injured to continue. After shuffling around the fragmented teams, Song Yanhan emerged alone. Wen Qi had his reasons for this arrangement. The other teams already had their own alchemists, most of whom had rather low martial art levels. Yi Qing's Yun Chen was the only exception. Is he willing? Yi Qingtang looked at Song Yanhan. In reality, she did not really care who was sent over to their team. Her 9 brats were enough. As long as the replacement would not be a burden, she had no objections. Wen Qi knew of Yi Qing's concerns, as well as the conflict between Song Yanhan, Lei Yan and the others, so he glanced at Song Yanhan. Sighing in resignation, Song Yanhan stepped forward. Teacher Yi, I was foolish and ignorant in the past. Please forgive me, I will give my best for this team competition. Song Yanhan felt very aggrieved. He used to hold such a high status in the Netherworld Academy in the past, but now he had ended up with this team, and he even had to beg to join them. But this person he was begging, he couldn't deny the latter's skills. Not only were Yi Qing's elixir refinement skills higher than his master Zhu Ning's, but even his students' abilities were also better than his own. What else could Song Yanhan say? All right. Yi Qingtang saw that Song Yanhan was sincere about joining, and so she didn't try to make things difficult for him. After everything was confirmed, Wen Qi led Yi Qing to one side for a private conversation. Meanwhile, Song Yanhan was left standing before that bunch of brats. Song Yanhan, Lei Yan rubbed his chin and circled around Song Yanhan. The expression on Lei Yan's face gave Song Yanhan goosebumps. Brother. Lei Yan smacked Song Yanhan's shoulder. Song Yanhan was startled. Damn, he wouldn't be able to hold his own against this guy in a fight. Was this fellow going to take this opportunity to take revenge now? We are a family from now on, so don't worry. We will take care of you during the team competition. But, you need to control your teacher in the future. Please stop him from dragging our boss away all the time, Lei Yan spoke meaningfully. Song Yanhan, how could this bunch of kids still be so relaxed? Didn't they know the trouble the Netherworld Academy was in? Song Yanhan was different from Lei Yan and the others. He knew the dire straits the Netherworld Academy would be in if they failed to get 3 spirit jades in this competition. Currently, they only had in their possession the 2 spirit jades won by Yun Chen and him. The only competition that remained was the team competition. Chapter 2392, Wailing Well, 1. The next 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Soon enough, the final segment of the Inter-Academy competition finally arrived. The team competition was upon them and the location was the Wailing Well situated in the Evil Marsh. A strange and mystical land which was only recently opened. Over 100 teams from the various academies, comprising thousands of participants, were fully prepared, just waiting for this final battle. There was only one entrance to the Wailing Well. The academy teams had to draw lots to decide the sequence of entry. Without the special talisman, no one would be able to leave the Wailing Well after entering. And for this year's competition, they had to remain in the Wailing Well for a fixed period of time and kill the most number of demons to win. As a result, the team to enter the Wailing Well first would have the greatest advantage. Lei Yan and the others had already prepared everything. Due to the special rules for this competition, they had to hand over their space rings to others for safekeeping. Apart from their clothes and personal weapons, they could not bring anything in. Only the teachers in the various teams could bring one space ring, and it could only contain the teleportation talisman to leave the Wailing Well, as well as the medicine faculty students' tripods. No food, no water, no elixirs, no special artifacts. Once inside the Wailing Well, they would face a harsh, unknown land. Yi Qingtang went forward to draw their lot. Lei Yan and the others waited at the side. "Humph, haven't seen you all for so long. Didn't think you guys would have the guts to show up today." A mocking voice rang out from behind the group. Lei Yan and the others turned to see Xing Rong with a group of Heaven Dome Academy students. Since that fateful day, Xing Rong held a grudge against them. He wanted to see if he could get a chance to beat up Lei Yan and the others during the martial arts sparring matches. But unexpectedly, he didn't even catch a glimpse of them in the arena. Thereafter, Xing Rong heard that the Netherworld Academy's top 2 students had not participated in the sparring matches at all. This became a big joke and a major talking point amongst the other academies. Lei Yan wanted to charge forward but Qin Feng stopped him. Now was not the time to get in a fight. Xing Rong sneered provocatively at them with a mocking expression. "I won't let you off so easily for our previous altercation. After entering the Wailing Well, you'd better pray that you don't encounter me. Otherwise," Xing Rong narrowed his eyes which were filled with threat. "Xing Rong, don't waste your breath on them. Teacher said that our main opponents are the Sky Martial Academy and Cold Cloud Academy." One of the teenagers reminded him. The Netherworld Academy had fallen so far behind that they were no threat to anyone, and no one treated them as competition. "That's right." Xing Rong smiled. "But I can still toy with them." Haha. With that, Xing Rong and his team turned to leave. "Damn, after entering the Wailing Well, let's see who's afraid of whom." Lei Yan gritted his teeth as he glared at Xing Rong's departing profile. But Song Yanhan, who didn't know what had happened between the two sides, looked grim. He didn't expect for Lei Yan and his team to have already made enemies with the Heaven Dome Academy even before the competition started. It should be pointed out that the Heaven Dome Academy's Yin Kong Luo had won second place in the individual martial arts competition. Their power was not something which they could go against. It was definitely not a good thing to be targeted by those folks so early on. After all, there were no rules stating that teams couldn't attack each other inside the Wailing Well. Chapter 2393, Wailing Well, 2, How did you end up provoking those Heaven Dome Academy people? Song Yanhan couldn't resist asking. Who provoked them? They came looking for trouble themselves. Lei Yan snorted in annoyance. Song Yanhan looked increasingly grim. Yi Qing's students were really all so ignorant. Couldn't they see the disparity between their skill levels and that of the Heaven Dome Academy folks? Isn't that Qiu Nan? Gong Jinyun caught a glimpse of Qiu Nan standing with another team. The others turned to look. As if sensing their gaze, Qiu Nan instinctively averted his eyes and pretended to chat with his teammates. Upon realizing that Qiu Nan was purposely avoiding them, the teenagers couldn't help feeling rather upset. We trained together for so many weeks. This fellow, how can he be so heartless? Lei Yan sighed in resignation. Song Yanhan glanced at Lei Yan but remained silent. Actually, Song Yanhan was able to see the situation more clearly than Lei Yan and the rest. Apart from Wen Qi and Luo Sheng, the other Netherworld Academy teachers and students in Universe City were all very angry with Yi Qing and his team. Even for him, he had endured quite a number of sarcastic insults over the past couple of days. The drawing of the lots soon concluded. Yi Qin had drawn a number somewhere in the middle. The first team to enter the Wailing Well was from the Sky Martial Academy. Just before they entered, a yellow bean-sized ball appeared and floated above their heads. The ball followed them in. This ball would record everything which happened to the team so that all the academy leaders would be able to watch the entire proceedings. This was also a measure to prevent someone from secretly bringing in a restricted item. In addition, it could show the performance of every single student. One by one, the teams entered the Wailing Well, until it was finally Yi Qingtang's turn. Yi Qingtang led Lei Yan and the others to the entrance. After giving them a steady look, she stepped in first. Lei Yan and the rest followed suit. Like that, 11 figures disappeared into the darkness. Almost immediately, she was hit with a wave of all-encompassing darkness. But soon, Yi Qingtang's line of sight recovered a little. At this point, she was immersed in gloomy darkness, her surroundings covered in a faint black fog. The air was bone-chillingly cold. Before she could fully observe her surroundings, Lei Yan and the others appeared behind her, and the nondescript little ball also appeared with them. Wen Qi and the other academy leaders were sitting in a large hall. Multiple floating screens were strewn across the hall in a rather haphazard manner. Each screen showed a team who had entered the Wailing Well such that the actions of every single team member were displayed for everyone to see. This is the team which the Netherworld Academy had been hiding from the rest of us. An elder from one of the academies turned to look at Wen Qi when he saw the image of Yi Qingtang's team enter the Wailing Well. Wen Qi maintained a poker face. I heard that a number of talented Netherworld Academy students didn't participate in the individual martial arts competition. Even Wu Fengling's disciple didn't participate. Vice President Wen, don't tell me this is your Netherworld Academy's trump card. So you have placed all your bets on winning this team competition, the person asked. Chapter 2394, Wailing Well, 3. The person's tone was casual but there was an undertone of sarcasm and his words attracted the attention of a few others. Staking everything on one bet or just one final desperate attempt to survive? The other academies did not really care. After all, they had personally witnessed Netherworld Academy's decline, and no longer treated them as worthy competition. Yin Kongluo's team has just entered the Wailing Well, someone pointed out as another screen appeared in the hall. Jin Qianyang had indeed just led Yin Kongluo and his team into the Wailing Well. But their surroundings looked different from where Yi Qingtang and her team arrived. There was only one portal entrance to the Wailing Well. But after entering, no one could predict where in the Wailing Well they would land. At this point, everyone's attention was focused on the elite teams from the Heaven Dome Academy and other top academies. Everyone was well aware that the winner would probably be one of those elite teams. The rest were just along for the ride. It was dark, cold and gloomy inside the Wailing Well. This kind of setting was the perfect environment for hidden dangers. Yi Qingtang led Lei Yan and the others further in, carefully analyzing her surroundings. Boss, are we going to hunt some demons now? Lei Yan rubbed his fists together, itching to fight. The others were likewise prepared for battle. But Yi Qing only replied, no hurry. What? They were stunned. Song Yanhan couldn't help shaking his head discreetly at Yi Qing's answer. They only had a limited amount of time inside. About 50 to 60 teams had entered the Wailing Well before them and those teams were probably already killing demons now. Meanwhile, Yi Qing was not at all anxious. How could they hope to win against the other teams in 10 days with this kind of laid-back attitude? Yi Qingtang didn't say anything else. Instead, she observed her surroundings. It was dark and murky but she could see quite several unfamiliar vegetation growing in the gloom. She didn't lead her team onward but turned to a patch of vegetation at the side. Bending down, she picked up a nondescript-looking plant. Lei Yan and the others couldn't understand what Yi Qing was doing. They just stood foolishly by the side. Taking a few steps forward, Yi Qing picked several more plants before turning around. Explore this area. If you see these plants, pick all of them and bring them back to me. Boss? You want us to pick plants? But, shouldn't we hunt for some demons first? Lei Yan was bewildered and his eyebrows furrowed. If you don't wish to die from blood loss during the battles, do as I say. Lei Yan was still puzzled, but Song Yanhan and Yun Chen immediately understood. Yi Qing was holding plants which were all herbs required to refine elixirs. To think that he was able to find these herbs in the darkness within such a short period of time. As they could not bring any elixirs with them, if they met with danger and incurred injuries, they would not have any medicine to help them. Boss, you want us to refine elixirs first? Yun Chen guessed at Yi Qing's plan. Yi Qing nodded. She had observed their surroundings and saw that it was relatively safe for now. When entering an unfamiliar place, the most important thing was to move in a calm and steady manner. These brats usually had plenty of elixirs in their space rings and so they didn't know how frightening it was to not have any during critical moments. During a crisis, a single elixir could mean the difference between life and death. Chapter 2395, Slow and Steady, 1. Now that they knew of Yi Qing's strategy to refine elixirs first, the teenagers all started moving. They soon collected quite a good amount of herbs from their surroundings and handed them over to Yi Qing. Without another word, Yi Qing sorted through the herbs and arranged them, before giving 2 portions to Yun Chen and Song Yanhan. Song Yanhan looked at the herbs. Do you know how to refine reversal elixirs? Yi Qing asked. Reversal elixirs were a type of healing medicine. They were not rare but were very effective. Song Yanhan nodded. Refine. Yi Qing's instructions were simple and straight to the point. With that, Song Yanhan resigned himself to the task. Seeing Yun Chen refine the elixirs using his palm flame, he quietly carried his tripod to a corner, although the sight made him feel somewhat abashed. Yun Chen and Song Yanhan were both top talents in the medicine faculty, and the reversal elixir was not complicated. As a result, they were able to produce them very quickly. Yi Qing didn't join in the refining. She continued to search for useful herbs in the surroundings, leading Lei Yan and the rest as they collected more plants. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. Song Yanhan had been refining non-stop and his hands were stained in plant juices. By that point, he had worked so hard that he felt his head spin. And he was shocked to discover that half a day had passed. And they were still at the same spot. They had not advanced at all. Apart from foraging for useful herbs, Yi Qing didn't look like he intended to venture further into the Wailing Well. Song Yanhan couldn't understand this at all. But Song Yanhan thought that perhaps Teacher Yi was just a more cautious person. Perhaps he would only make a move after refining enough elixirs. It was dark and gloomy across the Wailing Well, and there was no sense of day or night inside here. Song Yanhan had no idea exactly how long he had been refining. The elixirs in his tripod were taken out and Yi Qing allocated a portion to everyone in the team. Only after all the nearby useful herbs were collected did Song Yanhan stop. He felt like his arms were going to break in two. He didn't have any other elixir refining tools, only his tripod. Even more tragic was that Song Yanhan realized his elixir refining speed was far slower than that of Yun Chen's. Not to mention Yi Qing's. As much as Song Yanhan didn't want to admit it, he had personally witnessed Yi Qing produce 17 to 18 elixirs simultaneously with a single palm flame. The sight made him concede to the teacher's skills in full. Despite his skill and reputation, he still had to produce the elixirs one by one. "Boss, are we going to hunt some demons now?" Lei Yan finally asked in a timid voice. He had spent half a day digging for herbs. Yi Qing only replied, "You all wait here for me." Lei Yan and the others nodded obediently. Boss was finally going to make a move. Yi Qing soon disappeared. After a long time, she returned, bearing the faint smell of blood. The teenagers were excited. Indeed. Their boss went hunting for demons. But before they could ask Yi Qing about the demons, she tossed several strange-looking creatures at them. Eat. There was silence. Boss, didn't you go and hunt for demons? Jing Zhe looked at those creatures which were about as big as rabbits. No, I didn't. I went to hunt for food, Yi Qing replied. The team, Song Yanhan, was dismayed. They had spent the first afternoon inside the Wailing Well refining a bunch of elixirs and hunting for food. Meanwhile, they had not gotten a single glimpse of any demons at all. Did this teacher Yi even want to win the competition? Chapter 2396, Slow and Steady, 2. Meanwhile in the big hall, Wen Qi and the others bore very strange expressions as they watched. The teams from the various academies had already advanced further into the Wailing Well and were engaged in intense battles. But there was a single screen that stood out from the rest. Vice President, what is Yi Qing's team doing? Luo Sheng looked at the screen showing Yi Qing and his team. What was shown made his face twitch. The other teams had all started exploring the Wailing Well, and some teams had already encountered demons and were hunting with ferocity. Some teams encountered other teams and ended up in a scuffle. Meanwhile on Yi Qing's side, a bonfire was burning in that murky scene. One could see some vague shapes which looked like chickens roasting above the fire. Wen Qi was also befuddled. This was completely different from what he expected. Earlier on, Wen Qi didn't find it that astonishing that Yi Qing chose to refine elixirs first. He thought that the youth was just being prudent. But now, they were eating. Actually taking the time to sit and fill their bellies. Teachers from the other academies also noticed this unique scene. Quite a number of people glanced over, their faces filled with ridicule. The top Netherworld Academy students did not participate in the earlier martial arts competition, and the other academies guessed that they might be hiding their true power to stake it all in the team competition. But Wen Qi, your students, they really know how to enjoy themselves. A teacher from another academy chuckled. This competition would directly affect the reputation of the academy. And to think that the Netherworld Academy team was in the mood to have a barbecue? What a complete farce. Even then Wen Qi maintained his impassive expression. He believed that Yi Qing would not mess around. But for a moment there, even Wen Qi had no idea what he was planning. Compared to how the other teams had already encountered demons and were fighting them, Yi Qing's team was gathered around a bonfire eating roasted meat. Wen Qi's heart was constricted. And he was not the only one. Song Yanhan was also speechless. The next morning, Song Yanhan believed that Yi Qing would finally make a move. But the latter seemed to have no intention of hunting for demons. Instead, Yi Qing only led Lei Yan and the others to gather another round of herbs to refine elixirs. It was only after that they finally ventured deeper inside the Wailing Well. Boss, look, Qin Feng called out in a low voice. He seemed to have discovered something. The others followed his line of sight. A massive cave was hidden in a nearby forest. Several lion-shaped demons were pacing near the outside of the cave. These lion-shaped demons were huge. Even the smallest of them was at least 3 meters tall. This was the first time that Lei Yan and the others had met a demon after entering the Wailing Well. They immediately went on high alert. Narrowing her eyes at the lion-shaped demons, Yi Qingtang instructed in a low voice, "Little Inger, try and use your puppet." Moments later, Yi Qingtang retrieved a human-shaped puppet from her space ring and handed it to Mu Ziying. The puppet was the size of an adult man. Placed in front of Mu Ziying, it made her look even smaller than usual. Song Yanhan was startled by the sight of the puppet. "Teacher Yi, I thought we are not allowed to bring special artifacts," Yi Qing replied, "this is Jing'er's weapon." Song Yanhan was taken aback, only then did the thought of puppet masters appear in his mind. Chapter 2397, Slow and Steady, 3. As Song Yanhan looked at the quiet Mu Ziying, he was surprised. He had never imagined that this withdrawn little girl was actually a puppet master. Mu Ziying had made use of her spare time in the Evil Soul Forest to create this puppet. The materials used were all from the Evil Soul Forest. Light as a feather, her fingers danced and the immobile puppet suddenly moved. As if suddenly filled with life, the puppet suddenly got up and snuck toward those demons outside the cave. Puppet masters were very rare. This was the first time Song Yanhan witnessed a puppet master controlling a puppet. And he discovered that Mu Ziying was not even using any strings at all. Nevertheless, that puppet moved very naturally. From afar, it looked just like any living human. Mu Ziying had the puppet approach the demons outside the cave. Those demons seemed to be oblivious to that lifeless puppet's presence. As the puppet approached one of the smaller demons, the demon suddenly attacked. It opened its jaws and countless hands shot out of its mouth. In the blink of an eye, Mu Ziying's puppet was shredded to bits. Mu Ziying, let's go. Yi Qingtang commanded them to retreat the moment she saw what happened to the puppet. Song Yanhan, who had already prepared to do battle, was shocked. Go. They were leaving just like that. After quietly putting more distance between them and that cave, Yi Qingtang finally spoke. Jing'er's puppet has at least 70% of her powers. But it could not even withstand a single attack by the smallest demon. The puppet had been crafted with materials from the Evil Soul Forest. Yi Qingtang had specially tested that puppet before and knew that it could easily withstand attacks from someone who was a Divine Lord First Heaven level. It was clear that those demons were above that of a Divine Lord First Heaven level. Everyone in the team heard Yi Qing's explanation. There were at least 7 to 8 of those lion-shaped demons outside that cave, and Mu Ziying had chosen one of the smallest ones. Despite this, its battle prowess was already so formidable. If they had charged forward, they would have been torn to shreds within seconds. Boss, what kind of demons were they? Why did they have those things inside their mouths? Nangong Lai shuddered when he recalled those hands inside that demon's jaws. I don't know. Yi Qingtang shook her head. The team, who had been full of aggression and energy, all prepared to sweep the entire Wailing Well clean of demons, was now muted after meeting their first demons. Just a random demon and it was already beyond the Divine Lord stage. How were they going to hunt and kill any? Unless they could find some solitary demons. They had no hope at all when faced with a group of them. Just as they were feeling very depressed, sounds of fighting echoed from nearby. The sounds drew closer and closer. Lei Yan and the others turned to see a massive black figure charging straight toward them. A harsh light flashed. That massive figure was instantly destroyed. It was a demon which looked like a giant ape. But its fur was made up of millions of worms, which wriggled non-stop. Ugh! Lei Yan nearly puked at the sight of those worms. What kind of place was this? Who's there? A stern voice rang out. A familiar figure appeared before Yi Qingtang's team. Chapter 2398, Slow and Steady, 4, So it's you guys. The person commented when he saw Yi Qing's team. Yi Qingtang also saw who it was. It was Qiu Nan's teacher. Teacher, are you alright? Anxious voices rang out as a bunch of wretched-looking teenagers rushed over. Qiu Nan was amongst them. But he was in a rather pathetic state. His arms were covered in cuts and bruises, large patches of blood staining his sleeves. Some of his wounds were even turning black around the edges. Qiu Nan slowed down significantly when he saw Yi Qingtang's team in front. Their teacher had his students crack open the demon's skull and retrieve a demon crystal. Teacher Yi, I wonder how many demons have you killed? The teacher gazed coldly at Yi Qing with the demon crystal in hand. Compared to his team, Yi Qing and his students looked too clean. It was like they had not fought at all. None, Yi Qingtang replied in all honesty. The teacher gave a cold laugh. He glanced at Ran Mo, Qin Feng and the rest. Teacher Yi, let me give you a piece of advice. Even if you don't care about your own reputation, you need to consider the honor of the Netherworld Academy. Never mind that you were too afraid to participate in the earlier sparring matches, now you are still too cowardly to take any action. Do you know that everyone on the outside can see everything that we do in here? Go ahead and embarrass yourself if you want, but don't drag the name of the Netherworld Academy into the mud with you. It was well known that Yi Qin had two exceptional students, Ran Mo and Qin Feng, under him, but he didn't seem to have any intention of fighting. The teacher was very annoyed by that. That teacher looked at Ran Mo, Qin Feng and the rest. You kids will amount to nothing under a teacher like this. Qin Feng and the others remained impassive. Song Yanhan was the only one who lowered his head sheepishly, unable to hide the anxiety simmering inside. That teacher was not the only one. Song Yanhan also felt that Yi Qin was too cowardly. They had already spent a full day inside the Wailing Well but had not taken any action. It should be pointed out that their team was the strongest one from the Netherworld Academy. In the end, they didn't even have the courage to fight any demons. It was a massive loss of face to the Netherworld Academy. Yi Qin, I don't care that you lack courage, but you cannot be a burden to these kids. I don't like your cowardly antics, but for the sake of the Netherworld Academy, I can consider joining forces with you. But your students will have to follow my instructions. The teacher grew increasingly frustrated on seeing Yi Qin's attitude. If not for how powerful Ran Mo and the others were, he would not even bother wasting words on these cowards. The teams from the various schools were all scattered inside the Wailing Well and it was not easy to meet another team from the same academy. If they had the good fortune to meet their other schoolmates, they would usually join forces and fight together, for the sake of winning. Teacher Yi, I think that this teacher's suggestion, Song Yanhan felt that this teacher was being very reasonable. But Yi Qin replied, no need to trouble yourself. We will fight our own battles. The teacher and Song Yanhan were taken aback by Yi Qin's words. The brusque dismissal made that teacher feel infuriated. But Yi Qin was the leader. Without his agreement, he could not force the latter's team to cooperate. Yi Qin, they will end up in a dismal state because of you. The teacher snorted before leading his own team away. Chapter 2399, Slow and Steady, 5, Chiu Nan kept his head low and didn't utter a single word as he walked past Yi Qin and the rest of them. The friends by his side couldn't help but mutter, Chiu Nan, is that your previous teacher? You're lucky to be back. You would probably have died a terrible death if you continued to follow him. I thought that Ran Mo and Qin Feng skipped the competition to prepare for the team battle. But who knew, it was because of this incompetent teacher, who dragged everyone down with him and wasted their potential. What a shame that he still can't tell right from wrong. Our teacher reached out with kindness but he rejected it. I want to see how badly he can mess up with Ran Mo and the rest in a few days. They were supposed to be the elite team of the Netherworld Academy yet couldn't even compare to their team. Wasn't this a joke? Chiu Nan sighed quietly. Even though he didn't say anything, an expression of joy appeared on his face. At the same time, Lei Yan and his friends' faces turned dark as the team walked away. Song Yanhan was frowning, upset at Yi Qin's stubbornness. Teacher Yi, I don't know what you're planning, but you're going to drag the entire team down if you continue doing this. Even if we end up surviving and the Wailing Well for 10 days, it'll still be our loss if we kill fewer demons than the other teams, Song Yanhan blurted out. I have my own plans, Yi Qin said lightly. What else could he do? Song Yanhan only gritted his teeth and didn't say anything more. Lei Yan could sense that something was off but had no idea what to say. They had trusted Yi Qin all this time and despite all their questions and worries, they would not question his decisions. As they continued to move through the forest, soon enough they arrived at a lake hidden within it. There was a horde of demons drinking from the lake. At a glance, they could see the demons stacked densely against each other. Even the competitive Song Yanhan lost his desire to fight after seeing their numbers. But Yi Qing stopped in his tracks, hid in the shadows and glanced at the demons. There were almost 100 of them. The demons seemed to be ignoring each other. They were merely gathered at the side of the lake to drink water, but Yi Qingtang quickly noticed something strange. The lake was wide, but the demons were avoiding a certain spot. There were small, pink flowers growing in the area that they were avoiding, and they stood out against the gloomy Wailing Well. Yi Qingtang's eye narrowed slightly. After that, she brought them to a nearby area in the forest and found a safe spot to rest. For the next few days, they remained there. Other than letting Lei Yan and the rest of them gather a few herbs every day, they only observed the lake and did not kill any demons. Song Yanhan's patience was running out as the days passed. If this continued on, even if they survived 10 days in here, they would be dead last in the number of demons killed. How would they win? The same worry was in Wen Qi's heart outside the Wailing Well. Over the last few days, he had been watching the group's actions with bated breath. The other teams had already been on a rampage and a few of them had already racked up a huge number of kills. Yet there had been no movement on Yi Qing's side. Even the calm Wen Qi was starting to worry. Chapter 2400, All in One Shot, 1, Vice President 1, so this is the strongest team from the Netherworld Academy? An elder from the Heaven Dome Academy said with a laugh as he looked at Yi Qing's situation. He hadn't seen a team worse than the Netherworld Academy's team in the past few days. In the past few days, not only did the team not kill any demons, they didn't even show any signs of killing any. It was a complete joke. Wen Qi's expression was tight. The Heaven Dome Academy's elder watched the screen as Lei Yan and the rest of them carried a bunch of herbs back to Yi Qing and piled them in front of the youth. What a joke. That's right. Why struggle bitterly if you know that you're already going to lose? The teacher from the Netherworld Academy already understands this. Rather than fighting to the death with the demons and not being able to turn the tables anyway, why not suffer less? Wen Qi took a deep breath and suppressed the unhappiness in his heart. A few other teachers heard what was happening and came over. Seeing the absurd situation on the screen, they let out sarcastic smiles. The Netherworld Academy was done. Even a few other nameless academies had killed quite a few demons. Yet the top team from the Netherworld Academy did not have a single kill. It was an embarrassment to the Netherworld Academy. Wen Qi, where did you even find this teacher? Look at him plucking flowers in the middle of a competition. One of the teachers smiled as they looked at the pile of flowers in front of Yi Qing and his team. At the same time, Wen Qi looked expressionlessly at Yi Qing, his feelings complicated. In the Wailing Well, Yi Qingtang looked at the pile of pink flowers in front of her, her mind working quickly on a plan. Lei Yan and the rest who had plucked flowers to exhaustion were all sitting on the ground. Boss, are we done? We've already plucked all the flowers in this area. What do you need all these flowers for? Lei Yan asked curiously. Yi Qing had instructed them to pluck all the pink flowers and as many as they could. Even Yun Chen didn't recognize these flowers, and Yi Qing didn't seem to be making an elixir out of them, so why did he need so many flowers? Take off your outer clothes. Lei Yan and the rest of them looked confused but did as they were told. With that, Yi Qingtang stuffed the flowers into their outer clothes, using all her strength to stuff them in. The essence of the flowers dripped onto the contraption she had made from the leaves on the ground. Lei Yan and the rest followed her. In a short time, the pile of flowers had transformed into a pool of pink essence. Gathering all of the essence, Yi Qing said, "Follow me." Although they were all confused and had no idea what he was going to do, they followed him. Yi Qing walked over to the lake, where many demons were drinking. Do you know what this is? Yi Qingtang pointed to the pink essence. They shook their heads. By this point, Song Yanhan's patience had already run out and he was not interested in hearing what Yi Qing had to say. Yi Qing said lightly, "This is our winning strategy." With that, he poured all of the pink essence into the lake in front of him. Chapter 2401, All in One Shot. 2. Lei Yan and the rest of them looked on in shock at Yi Qing's actions. "Boss, she watched as the pink essence flowed into the water and instantly disappeared. "This flower is called the sleeping flower." "Sleeping flower?" one of them asked in surprise. "The flowers can numb the nervous system and make a person fall into a deep sleep." Lei Yan and the others instantly understood as Yi Qing said that. "Boss, you're using this to put all the demons to sleep?" She nodded. They were all getting excited. But Song Yanhan spoke coldly. "Teacher Yi, are you kidding me? This lake is huge, and these demons aren't normal humans. How can this little essence?" But before he could finish his sentence, deep snores came from the lake. In an instant, the demons drinking water at the lake collapsed without warning. And the other demons drinking at the lake quickly followed suit. The demons collapsed so quickly that no one even had time to react. But, Song Yanhan looked at the demons in confusion. How is that possible?" His eyes widened in disbelief, as though he had just witnessed an illusion. Collapsed? They had all collapsed. What kind of joke was this? These were all demons possessing divine lord level power. And yet they had been put to sleep by that little essence. Even Lei Yan and the rest were stunned. This was way too fast. Boss, this is all from the essence of those flowers?" Lei Yan stuttered in surprise. They had thought that the effects of the essence would be diminished in such a large lake and would only take out a few demons at most. But, sleeping flowers are extremely rare, and you don't really see them outside. Just 1/3 of a petal is enough to put an entire city to sleep, Yi Qingtang said lightly. She hadn't recognized the flowers at first and had only noticed them after seeing the demons avoid the flower. After all, sleeping flowers were extremely rare and just one of them could fetch the same price as a Grand Master level pill. These flowers were the things of legends. Who knew that they would be growing in droves here? It wasn't a coincidence that all the demons were avoiding it. They knew the effects of the flowers and were avoiding them on purpose. Yes, we've finally struck the jackpot," Nangong Lai clutched his chest as he looked at the demons at the lake. He was so excited that he couldn't breathe properly. "What are you standing there for? Go!" Yi Qing looked at them expectantly. With that, they leaped into action and rushed towards their present. Outside the Wailing Well, Wen Qi looked on as Lei Yan and the others cut off the demons' heads like turnips. His expression was subtle. Beside him were teachers from the other academies. The shock in their expressions was mirrored across them all. Chapter 2402, All in One Shot. 3. What's happening? One of the teachers rubbed his eyes in disbelief, not knowing what he was witnessing was real. What had the team from the Netherworld Academy done? How could they bring down so many demons at once? After making those snide remarks to Wen Qi, they had returned to observe the progress of their own teams. They had never expected Yi Qing to put the essence of the sleeping flower into the lake, and in the blink of an eye, his team had already brought down tens of demons. How terrifying their power was! What a frightening number! Within moments, they had surpassed the other teams with barely any effort. The demons in the Wailing Well were at least of the Divine Lord First Heaven level. They were extremely strong and rarely traveled alone. The other teams all had trouble finding one alone to attack and usually had to deal with a few attacking them at once. Even the students from the Heaven Dome Academy and Sky Martial Academy had suffered many injuries already. Which meant that they needed time to recuperate and could not fight temporarily. Before this, the team led by Jin Qianyang had been in the lead, having killed over 20 demons. But this Yi Qing's team had now killed 50 to 60 demons in one shot. Wen Qi. How dare your teacher break the rules? One of the other teachers quickly regained his senses as his face darkened. How dare you insult them? Which rule have they broken? Wen Qi calmed the shock he was feeling and remained stone-faced. How did you manage to bring down so many demons if you didn't break the rules? There must be someone of the Emperor level in your team. Would so many demons of the Divine Lord level fall so easily? They wouldn't believe it unless some powerful and forbidden Dharma artifact had been used. Wen Qi said coldly, everybody was checked before they entered the Wailing Well. Just because you can't do it doesn't mean that no one else can. He looked cold on the surface and was internally gleeful. My dear Yi Qing, he had never expected the lad to give him such a surprise. If this continued, there was no way the other teams could catch up to the number of demons they had killed. They finally had some hope. I would like to ask, how did your team do it then? They used the sleeping flower, an elderly voice said. Everyone turned towards the voice. It came from an elder from the Heaven Dome Academy. It was Qiu Ku, an alchemy master as famous as Zhu Ning and was extremely reputable in the second domain. Elder Qiu, the sleeping flower? What is that? Qiu Ku narrowed his eyes and his eyes swept over the humble pink flowers in front of Yi Qing on the screen. Sleeping flowers are extremely rare and have a great anesthetic effect. If I'm not wrong, the team from the Netherworld Academy must have used them to bring down the demons. Sleeping flowers? Are they that powerful that they can bring down so many demons? Furrowing his brows slightly, Qiu Ku only said, they can even bring down someone from the Emperor level. Good Lord! Everyone froze at these words. Chapter 2403, All in One Shot, 4, recalling how Yi Qing had been asking his team to gather flowers for a long period, now they finally understood why. Sleeping flowers are extremely rare and I've only seen them once before in an ancient book. I've never seen real ones before, and to think that, there would be so many in the Wailing Well and that he could recognize them. Qiu Ku nodded slightly and looked at Yi Qing. The sleeping flowers were rare and not many people knew about them. In a previous life, people had only slowly known about the flowers after the Wailing Well had been discovered. And Yi Qing had already known about the flowers a long time ago. The people who were suspicious of the strange teacher quickly fell silent. After all, Qiu Ku wasn't from the Netherworld Academy and had no reason to protect Yi Qing. What made them even more curious now was how this young teacher from the Netherworld Academy knew about these sleeping flowers. In the Wailing Well, Lei Yan and the rest of the team had swept up all the demons. Song Yanhan all looked in shock at the demon crystals they brought back. Never in a million years would he have expected that Yi Qing meant what he said. Those small, unassuming flowers actually had such a use. He had been doubting Yi Qing's actions from the start, but now he was the one who looked pathetic. He only knew how to be strong and had not observed his surroundings within the Wailing Well for things that they could use. Song Yanhan opened his mouth a few times as he looked at Yi Qing, words of apology at the tip of his tongue. But he couldn't seem to voice them out. He finally realized that the one pulling the team down wasn't Yi Qing Tang, but himself. With Yi Qing and Yun Chen's skills in alchemy, there was no need for him at all. He was also the lowest in martial ability and would not have been able to join this team if not for Zhu Ning. But he had never once seen the truth clearly. He had always thought that he was smarter. The team was enjoying their success at the side and had not noticed Song Yanhan's reactions at all. Boss, this is so powerful. Can't we just wait here for more demons to come and drink and we'll be able to win easily? Lei Yan said with a smile. He could already smell their victory. They had brought down tens of demons in one shot. Who else other than their team could do something like this? Yi Qingtang looked at the gleeful Lei Yan. That's a good thought, but it's not practical. Lei Yan's smile froze on his lips. Why? Even though the effects of the sleeping flower are extremely strong, the duration is extremely short once it enters the water. It has probably already faded. What? So fast? Lei Yan's face fell. Yun Chen's mind was working fast. If we can find more sleeping flowers, can we keep using this method? Yi Qingtang nodded. The youths were immediately excited again. Even if the sleeping flowers near them were already gone, they could look for more elsewhere. How could they possibly not come in first place with this method? Seeing their excitement, Yi Qingtang didn't burst their bubble. She hadn't seen any other sleeping flowers elsewhere other than beside the lake. They could only go deeper into the Wailing Well if they wanted to find more sleeping flowers. Chapter 2404, Tragic, 1. Yi Qingtang calculated the number of demons here and estimated the number of demons the strongest teams would have killed. With their hoard of demon crystals, they should be able to secure first place. But, this might not be the case in another few days' time. Yi Qingtang was well aware that the true test was not in the number of demons killed, but in the mutual fighting among the teams. No matter how many demons you killed beforehand and obtained how many demon crystals, the strongest teams would definitely pursue and eliminate the other teams in the final 2 days so that they could rob them of their crystals. In this way, not only could you eliminate the competition, you could obtain more crystals. When Yi Qingtang first heard of the rules, she already knew that the infighting in the final 2 days would be the key. So it didn't matter if your team only had a few demon crystals. As long as you could eliminate the other teams, the remaining one would be the victor. This was also why Yi Qingtang didn't immediately have her team hunt for demons. The sleeping flower was just an unexpected bonus. Since they were able to get a large number of demon crystals without much effort, she would never pass on such a good deal. All was fair in the team competition. The most powerful would prevail and the teams would do anything just to win. So Yi Qingtang didn't stop Lei Yan and the rest from looking for the sleeping flower. After all, it was a rare plant and they might be able to make use of it in the final 2 days. But Lei Yan and the others didn't manage to find another sleeping flower even after searching for a long time. They were very disappointed. Boss, are there any special places with certain conditions in which sleeping flowers need to flourish? We can't keep searching for it blindly. Who knows how long we will take to find more? Lei Yan sighed. They had searched for an entire day but couldn't find even a single petal. A smile was on her face. Just as she was about to say something when the faint smell of blood wafted over. Get up into the trees. Yi Qingtang ordered. In the blink of an eye, everyone hid in the dense tree branches. After a short while, a wretched-looking team appeared where they had stood. That team was really looking very pathetic. They were wearing Netherworld Academy uniforms and the teacher was stained all over with blood. A massive wound covered his shoulder and abdomen. He clutched his abdomen tightly to keep the wound closed, to prevent his intestines from spilling out. That teacher was pretty powerful. Otherwise, a normal practitioner would have already been killed by such a grievous injury. Even so, he was extremely pallid and there was not a pot of color on his face. His eyes were also starting to daze over. Is that thing still chasing us? The teacher gritted his teeth and forced out that question. No. The teenager supporting him answered uneasily. Those teenagers also had deep wounds. The gruesome sight of the bone beneath and the splayed flesh was startling. The teacher gave a heavy sigh before finally letting himself collapse down by a tree. All of the teenagers on the team were gravely injured. Who knew what kind of hell they had experienced? How is Su Yu? The teacher's eyes were already becoming unfocused. He leaned against the tree as he asked in a weak voice. Chapter 2405, Tragic, 2. The eyes of the teenagers instantly turned red at his question. Teacher, Su Yu. Su Yu, he's gone, the teenager choked out the words. He would never forget the sight of his teammate being torn apart by that monster. Su Yu's living body had been torn apart just like that. The teacher took a deep breath. Visibly struggling, he took off his space ring and handed it to the teenager beside him. Share the elixirs inside with everyone. Apart from a tripod, over a dozen demon crystals and a teleportation talisman, there was only one bottle of elixir inside the space ring. Su Yu was the only medicine faculty student in their team. He had hurriedly refined this bottle of elixir during a rare period of rest. And now, there were only 5 pills left inside that bottle. Everyone in the team had sustained grave injuries, and the elixirs were only basic healing pills. They were completely inadequate to treat their critical conditions. "Teacher, hurry up and take the medicine." One of the teenagers wiped his tears before holding up all 5 elixirs to the teacher's lips. Their teacher would not have suffered such fatal injuries if he hadn't tried to save them. "There are only so few." The teacher looked at the pitiful number of elixirs. His face grew increasingly grim as he shook his head. "My injuries are too grave. This medicine is useless to me. Go and give them to those who have suffered the most serious injuries." Then, crush the teleportation talisman. The teacher closed his eyes after uttering those final words. He would never have chosen to activate the teleportation talisman if not for their dire straits. Once activated, this meant they would be disqualified from the competition. Their life-and-death struggle, the sacrifice of one of their students. It had all been for nothing. The teenagers surrounded their teacher, all weeping uncontrollably. They had fought with every ounce of their strength and will, only to end up with such an outcome. Just as they were engulfed by their sorrow, a figure flashed across their heads. Within seconds, those teenagers instinctively gripped their weapons and looked at the figure who had just appeared. "Who's there?" The teacher gave a low shout. He forced himself to stand up so that he could protect his students. But seeing the uniform on the newcomer, he heaved a sigh of relief. It was the Netherworld Academy uniform. Yi Qing. The teacher immediately recognized the youth standing before him. It was that young punk Yi Qing, right? The teenagers who had all gone on high alert instantly relaxed on seeing that it was Yi Qing. Seeing that their teacher had exposed himself, Lei Yan and the others also jumped off their perches. Yi Qing Tang looked at the wretched state of the other team and couldn't help frowning slightly. The teacher was called Lu Yuanxiang and she knew of him even from before the competition. His cultivation level was comparable to hers and he was a highly respected teacher. The demons here were challenging but not so formidable as to be able to inflict such grave injuries on a Divine Lord 5th Heaven level practitioner. Moreover, amongst the Netherworld Academy teams, Lu Yuanxiang's team was only second to hers. His team had students who were ranked just below hers. What the hell had happened that resulted in Lu Yuanxiang and his team being so seriously injured? Yi Qingtang was full of questions. Even so, she knew that this was not the right time to ponder them. Chapter 2406, Tragic, 3. Without wasting another second, Yi Qingtang immediately went over to Lu Yuanxiang and crouched down beside him. Taking out some elixirs from her space ring, she gave them to Lu Yuanxiang. Lu Yuanxiang looked at the elixirs that Yi Qing was offering him. There was a conflicted expression on his face. Like many other Netherworld Academy teachers, he had never acknowledged Yi Qing as one of them. He had no clear lineage and was too young. In addition, he had forced Di Noa to leave. Lu Yuanxiang had not been as outwardly hostile as the other teachers, but he also never stood on Yi Qing's side. Who would have thought? He had to accept his help today. "Thank you." Helpless, Lu Yuanxiang thanked him before consuming the elixirs. Shortly after, Yi Qing retrieved a large stash of elixirs and tossed them at Yun Chen and the others. "Give these out to the others." Yun Chen and the rest immediately doled out the elixirs to the teenagers in Lu Yuanxiang's team. The exhausted teenagers heaved a sigh of relief after consuming the elixirs. "This is for nourishing the blood, this is for readjusting your energy flow, this is, just take them all for now." Lei Yan grabbed a bunch of pills and shoved them into the mouth of the teenager in front of him. The teenager was stunned. It should be pointed out that no one was allowed to bring any elixirs into this competition. After entering the Wailing Well, elixirs had become the most precious life-preserving tools. For their team, they only consumed their elixirs under the most desperate circumstances. Even so, their supply of elixirs had nearly run out. But Lei Yan and the others were sharing their elixirs as if they were on free flow, shoving handfuls of them into their mouths. All sorts of elixirs, just to be safe and help them recover. Did you guys secretly sneak in elixirs? One of the teenagers asked in a low voice. Lei Yan was taken aback. Who would dare to? We would have been automatically disqualified. We refined all of these inside the Wailing Well. Don't worry, it's completely in line with the rules. The youth was even more shocked, and the other teenagers looked equally stunned. So many elixirs. Just the act of foraging for enough herbs to refine so many elixirs would take up a large amount of time. Not to mention the process of refining them. What had they been doing inside the Wailing Well? Had they just been refining elixirs and doing nothing else? Yun Chen and Song Yanhan were both from the medicine faculty and knew the basics of medical treatment. They started to treat the wounds of those teenagers. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang tended to Lu Yuanxiang, who had suffered the most serious injuries. Even Lu Yuanxiang didn't expect Yi Qing to have so many elixirs. If not for Lei Yan's answer, he would have also suspected that he had snuck them in from outside. Teacher Yi. Lu Yuanxiang's voice was raspy. He looked at Yi Qing, who was busy treating his injuries. Don't speak. Your injuries are very grave and you will die if I don't tend to them now, Yi Qing said. Lu Yuanxiang moved his lips again but he remained silent. Instead, the eyes of the teenagers from his team reddened after hearing Yi Qing's words. Disregarding their own wounds, they ran over. Teacher Yi, please save our teacher. We beg you. Please, you must save him. Yi Qingtang didn't speak. Lu Yuanxiang's injuries were even more serious than she imagined. Not only was his skin and flesh ripped open, but there were also deep purple spots scattered across his wounds. He had been poisoned. Yi Qingtang had seen quite a number of demons inside the Wailing Well but had never encountered one that was venomous. As she pondered over this, she carved off the rotten flesh, applied more medicine, before slowly sewing up the gaping wound. Chapter 2407, Accident. 1. Lu Yuanxiang was even more powerful than Yi Qingtang and he specialized in physical cultivation. His physical body was far stronger than your usual person. If someone else had suffered his degree of injury, that person would have already died on the spot. Yi Qingtang sewed up his wound before smearing another large amount of medicine. Only then did she finally manage to bring Lu Yuanxiang back from the brink of death. Lu Yuanxiang was still looking very pallid but at least his life was now out of immediate danger. What did you guys encounter? How did you sustain such severe injuries? Yi Qingtang finally got the chance to ask. Lu Yuanxiang shook his head. I don't know. What? Yi Qingtang was taken aback. Lu Yuanxiang took a deep breath. His face grew increasingly bitter and pained as if he was recalling some horrifying memory. We were just chasing after a small-sized demon when we met that monster. Before we had a chance to take a good look, it burrowed out of the ground. At that moment, Lu Yuanxiang and his team never imagined that they were going to meet their worst crisis ever. While they were hunting that demon, the ground beneath their feet suddenly split open and a massive claw burst out. Before they could react, they were sent flying into the air by a tremendous force. The Wailing Well was already very dark and murky. When the monster broke through, it raised a huge cloud of dust and they could only vaguely see that it was something shockingly gigantic. Just a single paw alone was enough to cover 100-meter radius. We were not able to defend ourselves at all. That monster's power was completely different from the other demons here. An emperor level, it might even have been above the emperor level. I have never seen anything like that. I was unable to protect my students. I am useless. Lu Yuanxiang felt like his heart was being torn apart when he recalled that scene. He had fought to the death to save his students when that monster's claw gently brushed against his chest. It was just a gentle brush, but it tore a huge hole in the powerful body of this practitioner who specialized in physical cultivation. Luckily that monster didn't chase after them. Otherwise, they would have all been destroyed. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly. Since Lu Yuanxiang didn't get a clear look at that monster, she could not analyze what kind of monster it was. But regardless, the cultivation level of that monster had already far surpassed what the teams could endure. Emperor level and above. An emperor level monster alone was not something that any of them could handle. Lu Yuanxiang took a deep breath and struggled to calm himself. Yi Qing, thank you. For the first time, Lu Yuanxiang felt that this strange youth was not as unreasonable as he believed. Your injuries are no longer life-threatening, but you are in no condition to continue the competition. Yi Qingtang looked at Lu Yuanxiang. Lu Yuanxiang was well aware of the situation. After knowing the team competition's rules, any logical person would infer that the most powerful teams would soon start to eliminate the other teams. It would be a bloodbath. Meanwhile, he and his students were injured and exhausted. They were no longer in any condition to continue the fight. I know. I will have them crush the teleportation talisman soon and leave this place. Yi Qing, if not for you, I would have probably died in this place. Thank you. Lu Yuanxiang was sincere. With that, he called the teenager with the space ring over. Chapter 2408, Accident, 2, Our team cannot go on, but you are part of the Netherworld Academy. Previously, we encountered another Netherworld Academy team and heard from them about your team. Lu Yuanxiang paused and nodded at the teenager. The teenager took out their demon crystals from the space ring. There were over a dozen of them. These are the demon crystals we have collected over the past few days. We cannot continue with the competition, but we can give these to you. Yi Qing, I know you are a cautious person, unwilling to take risks. But this time, the Netherworld Academy really cannot afford to lose. You have Ran Mo, Qin Feng and the others under you. You guys are our greatest hope. Refining elixirs is important, but please have a bit more courage from now on, this is my only request. There were no traces of mockery in Lu Yuanxiang's words. He was only considering the fate of the Netherworld Academy. Yi Qingtang took in Lu Yuanxiang's words and knew that he must have met Qiu Nan's team earlier. She sighed. Lu Yuanxiang's demon crystals were important, but how could not take them? They were exchanged with the blood and tears of Lu Yuanxiang's team. If they gave up their crystals, their results would be zero. They lost one teammate while everyone else was seriously injured, only to end up with nothing. These demon crystals were too much of a burden. So she could not bear to take them. There's no need. We have our own demon crystals, Yi Qingtang replied. Lu Yuanxiang thought that Yi Qing was just trying to maintain some pride. He continued. Yi Qing, they told me that you didn't kill any demons over the past few days. Please accept these demon crystals as a token of our gratitude. Yi Qingtang knew what Lu Yuanxiang was saying. To dispel his doubts, she opened her space ring. Inside the space ring were rows of demon crystals. There were dozens of them. The sight stunned Lu Yuanxiang into silence. These demon crystals, I appreciate your kind gesture. But I cannot accept your demon crystals. Don't worry, I will not tarnish the name of our academy. Yi Qing promised solemnly. Even without the sleeping flower, there would be other ways. Yi Qingtang had all sorts of methods to get to those demons without shedding any blood. This was also why she had been in no hurry from the start. Even now she had plenty of ideas on how to get more demon crystals. She could not accept these demon crystals, which were stained with so much blood. Lu Yuanxiang was filled with astonishment. He thought that Yi Qing's situation was as described by that earlier team. After all, he had personally seen Yi Qing take out so many elixirs. And so it deepened his belief that the youth had spent the entire time preparing elixirs, without making any move against the demons. But, he never expected Yi Qing to have obtained so many demon crystals. Several times more than their stash. Meanwhile, Yi Qing's team members looked completely unharmed and not at all fatigued. With much effort, Lu Yuanxiang raised his blood-drenched hands and grasped onto Yi Qing's hands. Yi Qing, it's all in your hands now. The final hope of the Netherworld Academy rests on you. I will do my best. Yi Qingtang promised. Having obtained Yi Qing's promise, Lu Yuanxiang finally smiled, then he turned and spoke to his team. Come, let's leave this place. The teenager with the talisman wiped his tears and nodded. Although reluctant, he knew that they had no other choice. Chapter 2409, Accident, 3, Outside the Wailing Well, when Qi watched the wretched state of Lu Yuanxiang's team with helplessness and sorrow. Lu Yuanxiang was one of the most outstanding and promising teachers in the Netherworld Academy. Both Wen Qi and Wu Fengling held him in high regard. Wen Qi never expected Lu Yuanxiang to fail to endure to the end of the competition. What the hell was that monster? Did you guys get a clear look? Wen Qi turned toward the others in the crowd. The spectators from the various academies all looked very grim and solemn. There shouldn't be any creatures which are above the emperor level in this team competition. Shouldn't. Didn't you all see what happened just now? Wen Qi's voice was frosty. The team competition would be challenging, but it would not be so far beyond the limits of the competitors. If push came to shove, they might be able to accept the presence of an emperor-level monster. But above the emperor level, even the academy leaders at present would not be able to defend themselves against something like that, not to mention those in the competition. After all, this competition was not about sending these elite students to their death. There would be a limit on the difficulty level. We don't know much about the Wailing Well. We need to ask people from Universe City. The vice president of the Heaven Dome Academy also looked grim. The teams from his school had all performed very well over the past few days, but if they encountered a monster like that, he didn't even dare to think about the outcome. It should be pointed out that all the students in this team competition were the top talents of their academies. They were extremely precious to their schools. The family clans behind these elite students alone were a formidable presence. If there were multiple deaths and serious injuries, it would create a major uproar. I will go and ask. Luo Xing spoke up. Wen Qi nodded. The other academies were also fearful. They secretly rejoiced that it was not their own teams who encountered that monster. It is still not too late now. Lu Yuanxiang is a smart man and he can tell when things have become too serious. They will be safe as long as they leave the Wailing Well, one of the teachers comforted him. But the rest of them were still worried. Who knew where that monster was hiding now? What could they do if the other teams encountered it? Stationed on the outside, they were helpless. While they could see everything that happened to the teams in the Wailing Well, but they could not communicate with them. They could not even inform the other teams of this new development. Wen Qi looked very upset, but he knew that there was no other way. He instructed his men to prepare medical treatment for Lu Yuanxiang's team before continuing to watch the screen in the big hall. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Lu Yuanxiang instruct his student to crush the teleportation talisman. But before he fully exhaled, something unexpected happened. The moment the teleportation talisman was crushed, Lu Yuanxiang's team waited to be transported out of the Wailing Well. Finally, they would be leaving this terrifying place. They were reluctant but were already resigned to their fate. However, even after the talisman was completely crushed, the team remained on the same spot in the Wailing Well. What's going on? Lu Yuanxiang was shocked. The teenager who crushed the talisman was also stunned. He looked at the crushed talisman in his hand, his eyes filled with confusion. I don't know. I have already crushed it. Why are we still here? Chapter 24:10, Faulty Talisman. 1, Impossible. Lu Yuanxiang struggled to move forward to check the teenager's hand. The crushed remnants of that talisman were all that remained in that hand. This sudden change in the situation filled everyone with anxiety. Is this a faulty talisman? Don't tell me someone tampered with it. Yun Chen frowned slightly. The entrance to the Wailing Well only allowed people to enter and no one could exit from it. The rules also stated clearly that the only way to leave the Wailing Well was to use the teleportation talisman. But crushing the talisman meant that the team would be disqualified. No team would do that under normal circumstances. This talisman has been in my space ring the entire time. I did not take it out even once before this. No one should have been able to tamper with it. Lu Yuanxiang was frowning deeply. His body was already wrecked with exhaustion and intense pain. This new situation was an added burden. Their team was in no condition to remain inside the Wailing Well. If not for Yi Qing, Lu Yuanxiang would have probably died here. The rest of the team were all gravely injured and they could not possibly continue in such a dangerous environment. They wouldn't even be able to handle any adult demons now, not to mention that powerful monster earlier. Lu Yuanxiang looked increasingly grim. The teenagers in his team were also panicking. No one knew what was going on. The teleportation talismans had been handed out to everyone at the same time. Lu Yuanxiang immediately kept his team's talisman into his space ring the moment he received it. He thought that they would never need to use the teleportation talisman. Now, it had become their sole chance of survival. But this route to survival had disappeared right before their eyes. Despair engulfed the entire team. Boss, what's going on? Why did their teleportation talisman fail? Jing Zhe couldn't help feeling puzzled. As the crucial life-saving tool, there should have been zero mistakes in its preparation. For the moment, Yi Qingtang also had no idea what was going on. She took out their own talisman from her space ring and examined it. There appeared to be nothing wrong with it. It would be useless even if Yi Qingtang handed their teleportation talisman to Lu Yuanxiang. Each talisman was assigned to fixed members. Even if she handed her talisman to someone else to activate, her team would be the ones teleported out. Teacher, what should we do? The teenagers looked at Lu Yuanxiang in helpless panic. They had encountered a powerful monster and were all gravely injured. It would be certain death for them if they remained in the Wailing Well. Lu Yuanxiang looked increasingly ashen. He knew how severe things were now. Don't worry. Yi Qingtang spoke up as she looked at Lu Yuanxiang's increasingly pale face. Teacher Yi, do you have a plan? Lu Yuanxiang looked at Yi Qing. He had disdained this youth previously, but he was now looking at this very same youth as his final hope at survival. Yi Qingtang glanced at the two small balls floating above them. Vice President and the others can see our situation via those balls. They should have noticed something is wrong. We cannot confirm what happened with your talisman. But this does not prevent us from conveying a message to them. Chapter 24:11, Faulty Talisman. 2, with that, Yi Qingtang took off her coat and bit her finger. With blood from her finger, she wrote some words on her coat, then displayed her words at the balls. Lu Yuanxiang's teleportation talisman is not working. Entire team is seriously injured. Urgent medical attention needed. The balls transmitted those blood-red words to Wen Qi's eyes. Wen Qi thought Lu Yuanxiang's team would be out of danger once they activated the teleportation talisman. When he saw the talisman crushed but Lu Yuanxiang's team remained standing there, he was very shocked. Following that, he saw Yi Qing's message and the dread rose in the pit of his stomach. Wen Qi's face grew extremely grim. What is going on? How did the teleportation talisman fail? Wen Qi stood up, his face filled with shock. The teleportation talisman was the only way to safely transport people out. The consequences of a talisman not working was unimaginable. The other academy folks were similarly stunned. Lu Yuanxiang's team was the first to activate the teleportation talisman. No one had discovered this anomaly yet. The teleportation talisman failed to work. How is that possible? Wen Qi, what exactly happened to your team? The other academy leaders gathered around him. Wen Qi told everyone what happened to Lu Yuanxiang's team. Everyone's faces instantly darkened. Faulty talismans and a monster above emperor level inside the Wailing Well. If this goes on, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. One of the Heaven Dome Academy teachers stated gravely. They could not confirm now if Lu Yuanxiang's teleportation talisman was the only faulty one, or if all the talismans did not work. If it was the former, things were not as bad. If it was the latter, they did not even want to imagine the consequences. Go and find the Universe City organizers. Have them explain what the hell is happening. One of the vice presidents commanded in a low voice. The academies all sent their own men to find people from Universe City. But before they had even left the hall, they bumped into Luo Sheng, who had left earlier. There's no need for you to go. Luo Sheng was frowning deeply as he looked at the academy folks. His voice was very tense. What do you mean? Luo Sheng took a deep breath before turning toward the worried-looking Wen Qi. The Universe City people have all disappeared. What? Exclamations echoed throughout the hall. What do you mean by all disappeared? Luo Sheng replied, I have searched every corner of Universe City. Those people in charge of the Inter-Academy competition have all disappeared. The Inter-Academy competition was a competition between the various academies that were fighting for the chance to enter the God Relic. The academies all had a personal interest in the competition, so to ensure a fair fight, the Universe City folks were put in charge of the Inter-Academy competition. They were the first people to discover the God Relic and were very powerful and well respected. There had not been any accidents in any of the previous year's competitions. But unexpectedly, they had suddenly disappeared. Luo Sheng's news was like a bolt of lightning, striking everyone on the head. The other academies did not believe Luo Sheng's words that easily. They still rushed out to confirm if he was speaking the truth. The academy leaders remained in the hall, gazing at Yi Qing's bloody message. Their faces were extremely grim. Chapter 24:12, Faulty Talisman, 3, a monster that is above the Emperor level. A faulty teleportation talisman. And the missing Universe City people. I have a bad feeling about this. The Sky Martial Academy Vice President's face was grave. We are not at all familiar with the Wailing Well, and this is the first time it is being used in the Inter-Academy competition. Things are indeed not looking good. The Cold Cloud Academy Vice President's face was equally grim. Taking in a deep breath, Wen Qi tried to subdue the uneasiness in his heart. He watched the situation at Yi Qing's end with a very tense expression. We can only see what is happening on their side and have no way to communicate with them. Without the teleportation talisman, they are unable to leave the Wailing Well. Is there really no other way out of the Wailing Well? I don't know. After all, none of us here have ever entered before. The various academies were growing increasingly anxious at the current situation. The top students from the academies had entered the Wailing Well. In just a few more years, those young, energetic teenagers would become prominent figures in the various mainlands in the second domain, carving out their own niche. But now, they were all trapped inside the Wailing Well. If they were unable to find a way to leave the Wailing Well, they would forever be trapped inside. And there was that monster above Emperor level. It was not something that they could defend against. Lu Yuanxiang and the others were able to survive only because the monster had been underground and it hadn't fully emerged yet when they escaped. If it had fully surfaced, it would be certain death for Lu Yuanxiang's team. There was also luck within their misfortune. Any team which encountered the monster after it fully emerged, they would probably be Just as the Academy leaders were feeling an oppressive sense of despondence, the screen showing one of the Heaven Dome Academy teams was suddenly obscured by blood. The 11-strong team had been traveling across a marsh when they were suddenly attacked by a massive black figure. In the blink of an eye, everyone, including the teacher, was transformed into a bloody pulp. The only teenager lucky enough to survive had lost both his legs. Whimpering and dragging his blood-soaked stumps, he crawled toward the space ring dropped by his teacher. As the black figure approached him, he took out the teleportation talisman from the space ring and crushed it. A sliver of hope flashed across the teenager's eyes. But as the talisman was gradually crushed, a gigantic black shadow shifted over his head. The teenager was completely crushed into bits by the time the shadow engulfed him. 11 lives were lost in the blink of an eye. And that little ball floating in mid-air recorded it all. The massive black figure walked past the little ball. Its body far exceeded the scope shown by the little ball. The image captured by the little ball was just the tip of the iceberg. How gigantic was that monster? Silence enveloped the hall. Everyone watched the bloody scene and the ground covered in pulverized flesh. And everything had happened too quickly. Even those on the outside and watching the screen did not have time to react. There was only one scene which they managed to see very clearly. The teleportation talisman had been crushed. And it failed to work again. The final surviving teenager had died while still holding to that sliver of hope. Gasps shattered the heavy silence across the hall. Chapter 24:13, Desperate Straits. 1. This monster doesn't look like the one who attacked the Netherworld Academy team, one of the teachers muttered with eyes widened in shock. His statement was like the straw which broke the camel's back. The entire hall was engulfed in dead silence. It only meant that there was more than one monster that was above the Emperor level inside the Wailing Well, and Lu Yuanxiang's teleportation talisman was not the only faulty one. Damn it, what the hell is happening? What are those Universe City idiots trying to do? We cannot let them remain inside the Wailing Well. If they encounter those monsters, none of them will make it out alive. At this point, everyone realized just how serious things were. This year's Inter-Academy competition was clearly a trap. But why would the Universe City people do this? Send men to search every inch of Universe City. We need to know why they are doing this. And what exactly is going on in the Wailing Well? The Sky Marshal Academy Vice President's face was grim. The other Academy leaders agreed and immediately dispatched their own men to investigate the situation inside the city, to try and find some clues. We need to find a way to get them out, Wen Qi started with a frown. Having seen what happened to the Heaven Dome Academy team, Wen Qi realized that Lu Yuanxiang's team was already considered rather lucky. But this kind of luck would not repeat itself. Those above Emperor-level monsters seem to have only recently appeared, someone asked. The team competition was nearing the end and there had been no sign of any monsters which were beyond Emperor level. But today, there were 2 consecutive sightings. Lu Yuanxiang's team was the first batch to encounter such a monster, and that monster seemed to have just burrowed out from underground. Soon after, the Heaven Dome Academy team encountered an above Emperor-level monster which was clearly moving freely above ground. As a result, their outcome was much worse. Do you mean that these above Emperor-level monsters only appeared today? I am not sure, but it certainly feels like it. Moreover, I have a bad feeling about this. 2 such monsters have already appeared and we don't know just how many of them are in the Wailing Well. Also, the first 2 monsters are of different species. As they continued to analyze the situation and come up with their own conjectures, the situation seemed to become increasingly dire. Was this an accident? Or was this intentionally caused by someone? If it was an accident, why had the Universe City people all disappeared? Why were the teleportation talismans not working? If it was intentional, which terrifying character came up with such a bold plan to scheme against the top academies? How did this formidable person manage to control these above Emperor-level monsters? The current state of affairs was extremely dire. Even more depressing was the fact that the academy leaders had no way to communicate this information to the teams inside the Wailing Well. Still in the dark, those oblivious teams had no idea of the danger they were in. They still thought it was a normal team competition. Everyone in the hall knew very well what would happen toward the last stage of the team competition. We must find an exit out of the Wailing Well immediately. Try to find some way to communicate with the people inside. We cannot let them start fighting each other. Wen-Chi clenched his fists. I am afraid we can't contact them, the Cold Cloud Academy's Zhang Yunzhou said with a deep sigh. Chapter 24:14, Desperate Straits, 2, Zhang Yunzhou said, the rules of this year's team competition were already rather strange right from the start. No one was allowed to bring any special artifacts and we are unable to communicate with the teams. The only way to inform them about the situation is to send someone in to spread the news. But, Zhang Yunzhou paused before continuing. The various teams are too scattered. Even if we send people in, we might not be able to find them. Even so, we have to try. We cannot just sit by and watch them trapped inside, Wen-Chi insisted. Zhang Yunzhou looked at Wen-Chi with a conflicted expression. I will personally bring a team inside the Wailing Well. I will not allow any student from my academy to remain in such a dangerous land while we just sit by and watch, said Wen-Chi. The group was taken aback by Wen-Chi's decisiveness. The current state of the Wailing Well was completely different from what they expected. Monsters above the Emperor level were not something which even they could handle. Wen-Chi was risking his own life to save his students. Vice President, we still cannot confirm what is going on inside Universe City. You need to stay here to hold down the fort. I will lead the team inside. Luo Xing spoke up. They could not be sure if the rescue team would be able to find the others safely. If Wen-Chi encountered an above-Emperor level monster and died inside the Wailing Well, the Netherworld Academy folks in Universe City would end up leaderless. Wen-Chi's display motivated the other academies to make their move. They immediately decided to send their men into the Wailing Well together, to find the various teams inside. Meanwhile, the others would try their best to find some clues inside Universe City. I will send word to President Wu immediately. Wen-Chi nodded. The various academies started moving. Meanwhile, the people inside the Wailing Well remained oblivious. Yi Qingtang hung the cloth with the message on a tree behind her. She then continued to treat the injuries of Lu Yuanxiang's team. Unable to leave the Wailing Well, she would need to carry out more medical treatment on their injuries. Otherwise they would not be able to move. Teacher Yi, we are very lucky to have you. Lu Yuanxiang squeezed Yi Qing's arm, his eyes filled with gratitude. I am just doing what I should do. Yi Qing smiled. But Lu Yuanxiang was aware of the situation. He leaned closer to Yi Qing and said in a low voice, Teacher Yi, I know that my team is gravely injured and will only impede your progress. However, I have no choice but to be selfish and implore you to take care of these kids. If we encounter that monster again, you don't need to bother about me. I just hope that you can try your best to protect those students. Run as far as you can, I will do whatever I can to distract the monster and buy you some time. Who knew if they would encounter that monster again? Lu Yuanxiang had already considered the worst possible scenario. Yi Qingtang remained silent, but she was full of respect for Lu Yuanxiang now. Nevertheless, Yi Qingtang's line of thinking was not as simple as Lu Yuanxiang's. They didn't know if the faulty talisman was an accident or intentional. If it was intentional, it would not just be a matter of avoiding that monster and winning the competition. They would have to find a way to leave this place alive. Despite her thoughts, Yi Qingtang didn't voice out her concerns. She did not wish to further burden Lu Yuanxiang and his team, who were already pushed to their limits. She also didn't want to lay out such a cruel scenario to her own brats. After resting for a night, Lu Yuanxiang's team managed to recover a little after consuming large quantities of Yi Qing's elixirs. They were able to walk now, albeit at a slow speed. Chapter 24:15, Desperate Straits, 3. Yi Qingtang did not hurry them but just went along with the slow pace of Lu Yuanxiang's team. As per Yi Qing's instructions, Mu Ziying spent all night crafting over a dozen wooden birds. Those birds were rather small, only the size of a palm, and did not have any attacking abilities. But their simple design made them perfect for scouting. Yi Qingtang would have Mu Ziying release those birds to scout their surroundings first to ensure that it was safe. Only then would they continue forward. Every step was made with extra caution. Lu Yuanxiang's team was very curious when they saw Mu Ziying controlling those birds to scout the route ahead. At first, they saw faint strands shooting out of Mu Ziying's fingers and joining those wooden birds. As the birds flew farther away, those lines disappeared without a trace. Lu Yuanxiang had met several famous puppet masters before but had never seen this kind of puppetry. To think that it was being performed by such a young girl. He had never heard of there being a puppet master in the Netherworld Academy. After traveling for half a day, Lu Yuanxiang increasingly discovered that Yi Qing's steadiness and wisdom were far beyond that of someone his young age. There were many aspects of Yi Qing which Lu Yuanxiang couldn't help being pleasantly surprised at. Recalling those early rumors surrounding Yi Qing in the Netherworld Academy, Lu Yuanxiang's opinion of the youth had now completely changed. He was not all strange or arrogant as claimed in those rumors. Instead, he was exceptionally calm and patient. Not only that, he possessed alchemy skills even better than Zhu Ning's, and was able to produce several Divine Lord stage students in just a few months. If this young teacher was very arrogant and if not for Di Noa's incident, he would have instantly become highly respected by all the teachers. And now, after interacting with Yi Qing for some time, Lu Yuanxiang couldn't help suspecting the true story behind Di Noa's departure, and why the matter had been so overblown. After all, Yi Qing didn't look like the aggressive and pushy sort of person. But at this point in time, Lu Yuanxiang didn't have the mental energy to analyze this matter. All he wanted was to get through these last few days smoothly. Perhaps when the competition ended, there would be an exit from the Wailing Well. Boss. Mu Ziying suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Yi Qingtang asked cautiously. Mu Ziying moved her finger. Southeast direction. 800 meters away. Seems like there's something there. What is it? Mu Ziying did not rush to answer. She seemed to be manipulating those wooden birds to take a closer look at the situation. I am not sure. I crafted these birds too hastily and I can only have a vague sense so I cannot see anything. But it should not be a demon. The wooden birds are not transmitting any sense of danger. Yi Qingtang nodded. As long as it was not a demon or monster. She led her team forward to take a look, but they were all stunned when they arrived at the location. In the middle of a dense forest was a huge crater. It looked like it had been created by a giant's foot. Collapsed trees were strewn all around and there were large patches of blood between them, as well as remnants of pulverized bodies. These corpses were destroyed beyond recognition and the air was thick with the putrid stench of blood. These are people from Maple Knight Academy. Qin Feng frowned slightly as he looked at a school badge fallen on the ground. What happened to them? Yi Qingtang surveyed the surroundings as if trying to look for something. Finally, she discovered a body beneath a fallen tree. It appeared to be the gruesome bodily remains of a teacher. Chapter 24:16, Desperate Straits, 4. The teacher had been crushed into two parts and one arm was covering a dead teenage girl. Although the teenage girl was already dead, it was clear that even at the final moment, this teacher had been trying to protect his student. Yi Qingtang took off the space ring from the teacher's hand and opened it. She glanced inside, her face instantly darkened. I am afraid that my suspicions are proving true. Teacher Yi. Your suspicions? What do you mean? Lu Yuanxiang looked at Yi Qing in confusion. He had no idea what the latter had been suspecting. Lei Yan and the others were also very curious. They were planning to step forward to take a look, but Yi Qing commanded, "Go and take care of the others. See if there are any lucky survivors around." Lei Yan and his group were taken aback. Lucky survivors? Was Teacher Yi joking? Even the trees had been turned to mush. Anyone here would definitely be dead meat. But even though they felt that boss' task for them was a fool's errand, Lei Yan and the others obediently went and did as asked. Yi Qingtang led Lu Yuanxiang to the side and opened the space ring for him to see. When Lu Yuanxiang glanced inside, he saw that there was only a tripod and some demon crystals. For a moment there, he still had no idea what was going on. He looked at Yi Qingtang in confusion. "Teacher Yi, what's wrong?" Yi Qingtang replied in a soft voice, "The Maple Knight Academy's teleportation talisman is gone." Lu Yuanxiang was taken aback. "I already suspected that your teleportation talisman's failure to work might not have been an accident. So when I saw the Maple Knight Academy team, I wanted to confirm my suspicions. The Maple Knight Academy had clearly also encountered some indomitable monster. Otherwise, they wouldn't have died so wretchedly. No teacher would be so stubborn as to refuse to use the teleportation talisman under such circumstances." And the absence of the teleportation talisman in the space ring confirmed Yi Qingtang's conjecture. The Maple Knight Academy people must have used the teleportation talisman at the crucial moment, wanting to escape from this place. But in the end, their talisman also failed to work, just like yours. They were not teleported out and all died here. Lu Yuanxiang was stunned. Before he could react, he saw Yi Qing take out her space ring and the teleportation talisman from inside it. Without any hesitation, she crushed it. "Teacher Yi," Lu Yuanxiang wanted to stop him but it was too late. After it was crushed, Yi Qing remained standing there. Lei Yan and the others did not disappear either. All that had happened in front of his eyes, completely stunned Lu Yuanxiang. Yi Qingtang was not surprised at the outcome. These teleportation talismans are useless. We have been tricked. By whom? Who would dare to tamper with the teleportation talismans? Do they want to make enemies out of the various academies? Lu Yuanxiang asked. Yi Qingtang shook her head. There were too few clues and she could not make an accurate conjecture at this point. Something suddenly came to mind but she remained silent. Things were probably even more complicated than what they could imagine now. Mu Ziying suddenly ran over. "Boss, there are some people heading this way." With a slight frown, Yi Qingtang summoned Lei Yan and the others to immediately leave this wretched place. But just as they were about to flee into the dense forest, several figures emerged. Chapter 24:17, Death Wish, 1, The figures stood by the crater. They were taken aback when they saw the collapsed trees and dead Maple Knight Academy people. It was a team from the Flying Star Academy. One of them was a teenager who had an exceptionally acute detection ability. This was how they detected the presence of Yi Qing's group and rushed over. But they couldn't help being stunned by the disastrous sight. "Teacher, they are people from the Netherworld Academy." One of the Netherworld Academy students spotted Yi Qing and his team, who were just about to leave. The Flying Star Academy teacher frowned as he surveyed the death scene before him. The Netherworld Academy is so merciless. "Teacher, what should we do now? They must have just expended a lot of energy. It is the best time for us to make our move and stop them," the teacher instructed. "But, their numbers. It doesn't look like they are just one team. If I am not wrong, it looks like two teams combined. We would be at a disadvantage if we attacked them, right?" The teenager hesitated. The team competition was approaching the final stage. The teams had all stopped hunting demons and were targeting the other teams. The teacher narrowed his eyes as he examined Yi Qingtang's group. About half of their members are grievously injured and would not be able to fight. Amongst the rest, there are 2 from the medicine faculty. At the most, only 9 of them would be able to participate in the battle. We still have the advantage of numbers. Moreover, the teacher lowered his voice before commanding his students to attack. Initially, Yi Qingtang hadn't wanted to meddle with them, but the Flying Star Academy folks charged forward and blocked their way. If not for Lu Yuanxiang's team, Yi Qingtang and her brats would have already disappeared without a trace. Unfortunately, Lu Yuanxiang's team would be left in the lurch if they fled first. A sense of foreboding arose in Lu Yuanxiang's mind when he saw the people blocking their way. He turned to see the Flying Star Academy teacher standing behind them. The Flying Star Academy teacher said provocatively, trying to escape after robbing them. I already heard rumors of the Netherworld Academy but never expected you guys to be so merciless. Killing so many Maple Knight Academy people just for the sake of taking their demon crystals. Lu Yuanxiang instantly realized that there was a misunderstanding. My friend, you have misunderstood. We did not kill the Maple Knight Academy people. We only just arrived. Who else if not you guys? We are both competitors and there's no need to try and hide the truth. But since you dared to rob others, you should be prepared to be robbed. The Flying Star Academy teacher narrowed his eyes. The spirit energy of his students surged. Lu Yuanxiang was also well aware that the true danger in this competition was not only the infighting between the various academies. The Wailing Well test is not as simple as we thought. There are monsters which are above Emperor level hidden in here, and the Maple Knight Academy folks were killed by such a monster. Even our teleportation talisman is defective. At a time like this, we cannot continue fighting amongst ourselves. Lu Yuanxiang was sincere in his persuasion, but Yi Qingtang remained expressionless. She knew that Lu Yuanxiang was just too kind-hearted and naive. But his urgings would be a futile attempt. And Yi Qingtang's predictions were true. The Flying Star Academy teacher remained unmoved after hearing Lu Yuanxiang's persuasion. Instead, a smirk crossed his lips. Chapter 24:18, Death Wish. 2. Lu Yuanxiang's kind intentions sounded like a ridiculous joke to the ears of those from the Flying Star Academy. Not only did it fail to stop them, but it also made them feel that these 2 Netherworld Academy teams must have been so heavily injured from the earlier battle that they were just trying to trick them into not fighting. Lu Yuanxiang wanted to tell everyone the truth and avoid an unnecessary bloodbath, but the Flying Star Academy teacher's expression suddenly changed. In the blink of an eye, the Flying Star Academy folks charged toward Lu Yuanxiang and his team. Their first targets were Lu Yuanxiang's team, who were all grievously injured and unable to defend themselves. Be careful. Yi Qingtang dragged Lu Yuanxiang behind her, before reaching out an open palm to meet the Flying Star Academy teacher's fist. A massive shockwave was emitted when his fist made contact. Protect the others. Yi Qingtang instructed Lei Yan and the rest before flying toward the Flying Star Academy teacher in attack. Yi Qingtang had already seen through the Flying Star Academy's strategy. They planned to attack the vulnerable Lu Yuanxiang's team first so that they could hold them as hostages to force Yi Qingtang's team to hand over their demon crystals. As highly respected as an academy might be, they would still end up resorting to all sorts of nefarious means to win. Having already predicted this, Yi Qingtang was not at all surprised. The moment the command was given, Lei Yan and his group immediately drew their weapons and met their opponents. Yun Chen and Song Yanhan stood in front of Lu Yuanxiang's team to protect them, carefully observing their surroundings. Song Yanhan's hands were a little pale. As a medicine faculty student, he had never been in a real battle like this. He subconsciously glanced at Yun Chen and saw that there were no traces of fear on the other boy's face. Instead, he looked combat-ready, arms wide open to protect Lu Yuanxiang's team. Yun Chen, are you not scared? Song Yanhan swallowed hard. Yun Chen was slightly taken aback before smiling. What is there to be scared of? Song Yanhan didn't know how to reply. He had been under Zhu Ning all this while and enjoyed a high status in the school. As a result, he was used to a pampered existence and possessed an arrogant but more naive view of life. He thought that this competition would purely be about the number of demons killed. But now, the danger was far beyond what he had imagined. Another team was actually attacking them. The Flying Star Academy people were not at all surprised or angry even though they thought the Netherworld Academy folks had killed the Maple Knight Academy team. It was as though this was supposed to happen in this competition. Apart from a medicine faculty student, the other 10 members of the Flying Star Academy threw themselves into the battle. Meanwhile, there were only 9 people on Yi Qingtang's side. Very soon, the extra person snuck his way to Yun Chen's proximity. 2 medicine faculty students and a group of injured folks. I suggest that you obediently surrender, otherwise, you will be the ones to suffer. The Flying Star Academy teenager surveyed his easy targets as he raised his sword in a threatening manner. The Flying Star Academy teacher had planned this. The others would distract the 9 fighters while he took the opportunity to hold the rest hostage. All the medicine faculty students had a special emblem on their uniforms. As a result, they knew that Yun Chen and Song Yanhan were from the medicine faculty. Chapter 24:19, Death Wish, 3, Be careful, this person is at the Divine Lord stage. Lu Yuanxiang saw that the situation was not looking good. He wanted to take action but the slightest movement tore open his wound. Blood gushed out and he was unable to step any further. Song Yanhan broke out in a cold sweat, and his hands couldn't stop trembling. Still want to struggle? Don't blame me then. The Flying Star Academy smirked before charging toward them, slashing down toward Song Yanhan. Song Yanhan had practiced alchemy from a young age and the level of his martial art was very low. Suppressed by the power of a Divine Lord level practitioner, he was unable to move an inch. Seeing the sword hovering above his head, Song Yanhan instinctively shut his eyes. But the expected wave of pain did not materialize. He opened his eyes again. Another sword had blocked that attacking sword. Song Yanhan turned in shock to see that it was Yun Chen who had blocked that attack. And Yun Chen was exuding the aura of a Divine Lord level practitioner. Song Yanhan was stunned. Even Lu Yuanxiang's team was also shocked. Yun Chen was a Divine Lord level practitioner. What kind of joke was this? Wasn't he from the medicine faculty? At this moment, Yun Chen had no time to explain himself. Stepping forward, he forced back their attacker. The Flying Star Academy teenager never expected this medicine faculty student to be at the Divine Lord stage. Startled, he was forced back several meters. But he soon snapped out of his trance and pressed forward. Even though he was a Divine Lord stage, a medicine faculty student could never be better at martial arts than him. But, Yun Chen soon disproved his theory. Lu Yuanxiang and the others had been very worried, but after witnessing Yun Chen's fluid moves, they finally relaxed a little. The opponent never expected a medicine faculty student to be so good at fighting. Every single move was lightning quick and precise, completely on par with a martial arts practitioner of the same level. On top of that, his attacks were more ruthless and relentless. The Flying Academy teenager couldn't help feeling shaken from the decisiveness of the attacks. Yun Chen was holding himself well. Meanwhile, the other battle was also progressing with white-hot intensity. Lei Yan and the others had been all hyped up for battle since entering the Wailing Well, but they hadn't gotten a single opportunity to fight. Yi Qing took care of everything and they hadn't been able to do anything. This was a good chance for them to vent their pent-up energy on this team from the Flying Star Academy. Originally they hadn't planned to fight these folks, but who could blame them since they came knocking on their doors? What else was there left to say? Thrash them. The Flying Star Academy teenagers were soon beaten down. Especially the 2 who were fighting Ran Mo and Qin Feng. They were nearly crying out for mercy. In reality, the Flying Star Academy team dared to attack Yi Qingtang's team because of the Netherworld Academy's dismal performance in the earlier martial arts competition. They also noted that Yi Qingtang was very young and did not look qualified to be a teacher. A team led by such a young teacher could not possibly be an elite group. That was why they decided to attack. Who would have thought that they had kicked a wasp's nest? The Flying Star Academy teacher realized something was off as he fought Yi Qingtang. This frail-looking youth in his 20s was actually a Divine Lord 5th Heaven level practitioner. Chapter 24:20, Who Said I Was a Good Person? 1. Within a few rounds, Yi Qingtang thrashed the Divine Lord 4th Heaven level teacher so badly that he could barely lift his head. He was drenched in a cold sweat, but Yi Qing still looked fresh, as if he had hardly used much strength. As the youth executed another round of attacks, his speed was so fast that his opponent had no time to react at all. In the next second, the teacher felt like his head had been smashed by a huge rock. Seeing stars, he dropped from mid-air and collapsed to the ground with a loud crash. Soon after their teacher fell, the Flying Star Academy students were defeated one by one. Lei Yan and the others tossed the defeated students before Yi Qing's feet. Grinning, Yun Chen had also dragged his swollen-faced Flying Academy opponent over. The other Flying Academy students had been feeling rather despondent. Now, the sight of Yun Chen in his medicine faculty uniform, dragging their teammate over, shocked them. What was going on? A medicine faculty student able to thrash their Divine Lord level martial arts teammate? Lu Yuanxiang also led his team over. He heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the entire Flying Star Academy team had been defeated. The Flying Star Academy teacher thought that he had come upon a good opportunity. Instead, his face was now swollen beyond recognition, fresh blood still flowing from the gashes on his face. He never imagined that he would be so utterly defeated. Teacher Yi. Lu Yuanxiang looked seriously at Yi Qing. The other Netherworld Academy teachers had disagreed with Yi Qing's decision to not let his team participate in the martial arts competition. But now, it looked like Yi Qing's decision was the right one. Only a few days after the individual martial arts competition, the academy teams entered the Wailing Well to endlessly hunt and slaughter demons. It was an exhausting period. As a result, even though Yun Chen's opponent was also a Divine Lord level practitioner, he was too exhausted to be able to fight properly. Yi Qing looked at the Flying Star Academy teacher collapsed on the ground. Without another word, she took out his space ring. The teacher already expected that they would lose their demon crystals after being defeated. But he saw that Yi Qing didn't retrieve their demon crystals. Instead, he took out their teleportation talisman. Shock filled his eyes. Stop! What are you trying to do? The Flying Star Academy teacher was panicking. There was still a period of time before the end of the competition. Although they had lost their current hoard of demon crystals, they still had a chance to get more. But if Yi Qing crushed their teleportation talisman, they would be transported out of the Wailing Well. They would lose all hope then. Have mercy. Don't be so ruthless. Yi Qingtang ignored his cries. As the Flying Star Academy teacher railed at her, she crushed their teleportation talisman. The Flying Star Academy team fell into despair as they looked at the flash of light emitted by the talisman. But they soon discovered that the teleportation talisman did not seem to work. They were not transported out. At this moment, Lu Yuanxiang's earlier words suddenly echoed in the Flying Star Academy teacher's mind. The Wailing Well had monsters above the Emperor level. And their teleportation talismans were all defective. Could he be telling the truth? You guys really didn't kill those from the Maple Knight Academy? The Flying Star Academy teacher seemed to be hoping that Yi Qing's team had killed those people. After all, that scenario was far better than Lu Yuanxiang's claims being real. If we had killed them, you would have already met the same fate. Would we still waste time talking to you? Nangong Lai sneered. The Flying Star Academy teacher's face turned pale. There was no way he could fail to know what this all meant. Chapter 24-21, Who Said I Was a Good Person? 2. Even if he didn't wish to believe it, the teleportation talisman had been crushed right before his eyes. Yet they were still inside the Wailing Well. This proved everything. Teacher Yi, I think that we should let them go now. Lu Yuanxiang questioned tentatively. Yi Qingtang nodded. The Wailing Well situation was extremely urgent and dangerous. This was not the time to fight with each other. And Yi Qingtang was not that petty. Let alone the group was already so badly beaten up. They had been taught a good lesson. The Flying Star Academy team was released, but their faces remained ashen. The teenagers looked at their own teacher with a deep sense of unease. Now that they didn't have a teleportation talisman, how would they leave this dangerous place if there were really above Emperor-level monsters? I am sorry. I never imagined that this could be true. The Flying Star Academy teacher looked at Lu Yuanxiang and Yi Qingtang. They had kindly tried to inform him, but all he could think about was snatching their demon crystals. Lu Yuanxiang shook his head. With so many things weighing upon his mind now, he was in no mood to kick up a fuss with these people. The Flying Star Academy teacher looked distressed. He wanted to say something else but suddenly noticed. Yi Qing was pouring the demon crystals from his space ring into his own. The Flying Star Academy teacher, hold on. What was going on? Teacher, didn't you say that you guys didn't? Yi Qingtang glanced at him. I didn't take the Maple Knight Academy team's crystals, but that doesn't mean I won't take yours. Since they had delivered themselves to her doorstep, there was nothing wrong in taking their crystals. The Flying Star Academy teacher's eyes widened. The humble gratitude in his eyes instantly morphed into more complicated feelings. What was wrong with this person? Didn't they say there were above Emperor-level monsters? At a time like this, shouldn't they be worrying about their own safety? But they were taking advantage of the situation. Even so, the Flying Star Academy teacher didn't know how to voice out his objections. After all, they were indeed the ones who had attacked Yi Qing's team intending to rob them of their demon crystals. Now that they were defeated, it was only logical for him to take their crystals. But why did it still feel so strange? Likewise, Lu Yuanxiang also felt rather befuddled when he saw Yi Qing take their demon crystals. Hadn't Yi Qing said he had no need for them when he volunteered their crystals earlier? After collecting all the demon crystals, Yi Qingtang tossed the space ring back to the teacher. The Flying Star Academy teacher looked at his space ring, which now only contained a tripod. He looked distressed and felt very conflicted. Let's go, Yi Qingtang said. Lu Yuanxiang and the rest followed Yi Qingtang. The Flying Star Academy teacher looked at Yi Qing's departing profile. He opened his mouth several times but didn't know what to say. To be honest, Yi Qing's team was indeed stronger than them. And they had discovered the Wailing Well anomaly before them. Also, they were able to survive even after knowing about the above Emperor-level monsters. Perhaps they had some special abilities. Teacher, what should we do? The Flying Star Academy teacher-student looked ill at ease. Wouldn't they all be dead meat if they really encountered an above Emperor-level monster? Let's follow them. The Flying Star Academy teacher gritted his teeth. The young teacher was clearly the leader of the Netherworld Academy group, and he was more familiar with the Wailing Well situation. Now, it was the best choice for them to follow the Netherworld Academy. At the very least, they would be a little safer. Are we not going to look for the other teams? One of the teenagers asked. The teacher shook his head. When have we met any other teams other than today? The Wailing Well is too large. I cannot risk your lives. Chapter 24-22, Who Said I Was a Good Person? 3. The teenagers nodded. Although still feeling rather conflicted, they chose to follow Yi Qing's team, keeping a suitable distance between them. Boss, those guys are following us. Mu Ziying's wooden birds could sense the Flying Star Academy team's presence. Let them be, Yi Qing replied in a mild tone. Lu Yuanxiang glanced at Yi Qing and he couldn't resist a small smile. Wasn't agreeing to let those people tag along then. Teacher Yi, you are a good person. Lu Yuanxiang commented. Yi Qing Tang, who said she was a good person? Boss, is it really good to let them follow us? They came at us with such ill intentions from the start, Lei Yan muttered. The Flying Star Academy team failed to defeat them. If they had managed to win the battle, would they have been so kind? Are you prepared to fight again if you meet another team like them? Yi Qingtang asked. Lei Yan was taken aback. The various teams would try to attack each other now. But this competition is not as simple as we think. There is no need for us to waste our energy to handle the other teams. This Flying Star Academy team already knows the truth, so if we meet with another team from their academy, they would believe them more readily, Yi Qingtang explained. She allowed the Flying Star folks to follow them not because she was kind-hearted. Under the current circumstances, it was just the most appropriate decision. The Wailing Well was too expansive and Yi Qingtang didn't know how to leave this place. If they could gather more teams, they would be able to collect more information about the Wailing Well and would only support their attempts to leave. Outside the Wailing Well, the academy leaders were focused on the scene before them. When the Flying Star Academy vice president saw his team attack Yi Qing's group, his heart had risen to his throat. He was desperate to tell his people about the dangers inside the Wailing Well and to stop fighting each other. In the end, before long, he saw his own team being thrashed by Yi Qing's group. Thereafter, they were even secretly following behind Yi Qing's team like obedient chicks behind the mother hen. The Flying Star Academy vice president shot Wen Qi an awkward glance. Truly embarrassing. If not for the current dire circumstances, he really wished to pretend that the team didn't belong to his academy. Wen Qi was oblivious to the Flying Star Academy vice president. He was no longer that worried for Yi Qing's group. After all, this kid was steady and capable. Wen Qi felt very lucky to have made this correct choice. The first batch of our men have just entered the Wailing Well. I hope that they can find the teams as soon as possible, someone announced. Actually, I am now more worried about something else. Wen Qi frowned slightly. What? The others looked at him. The team competition is 10 days long. Is this a fake deadline or will something even more terrible happen on that date? Wen Qi's face turned increasingly grave. The other academy folks realized this point now. But they had too few clues at this moment. Universe City was like an empty shell, there was nothing useful remaining. And during this period, another few teams had been attacked by above-emperor-level monsters. Just like the Maple Knight Academy team, they had all perished in a matter of seconds. And the monsters were all of different species. The number of above-emperor-level monsters inside the Wailing Well had been increasing continuously. The number of deaths was also climbing exponentially. Chapter 24-23, Symbols, 1, Yi Qingtang's group continued forward. Luckily they only met a few demons on the way and didn't encounter any above-emperor-level monsters. With the protection of Yi Qingtang's team, Lu Yuanxiang's team also remained safe. Teacher Yi, we have been a burden to you. Lu Yuanxiang was full of gratitude to Yi Qing. Yi Qingtang merely waved off his words. These demons are not a problem. The key now is how to leave the Wailing Well. Yi Qingtang fell into deep thought. There was just another day to go before the 10-day deadline, but with the defective teleportation talismans, what should have been a limited number of days now felt like an endless period. How were they to leave the Wailing Well without a teleportation talisman? The vice president and the others should have already seen what had happened. I believe they will have a plan soon, Lu Yuanxiang said. But Yi Qingtang was not that optimistic. The teleportation talismans had all failed, and the Wailing Well was an unfamiliar location. All around them were unknown dangers. If anything, Yi Qingtang had a premonition that the 10-day deadline might not be the end to this team competition, but the start of a new danger. And this prediction of hers happened to be the same as Wen Qi's earlier conjecture. What is that? Qin Feng suddenly saw a destroyed patch amongst the dense forest in front of them. It looked like the scene from the Maple Knight Academy incident. A large area was flattened as if the ground had been turned upside down. Collapsed trees had fallen upon large mounds of dirt and rocks. Yi Qingtang immediately turned to look at Mu Ziying. The young girl shook her head, indicating that she did not sense any living creature in front. Only then did Yi Qingtang lead her group forward. A large hole had been split open under the wreckage. Yi Qingtang stood at the side, peering into the darkness. "Inger, send a puppet in to take a look," Yi Qingtang said. Mu Ziying sent a few wooden birds in. Following behind them, the Flying Star Academy team saw that Yi Qing's group had suddenly stopped. They also came to a halt some distance away. "Teacher, what are they doing?" One of the students looked at the Flying Star Academy teacher in puzzlement. The teacher shook his head. They did not dare to step too close and couldn't hear what Yi Qing's group was saying, but along the way, he had witnessed how capable Yi Qing was in assigning the limited number of students in his team to handle the demons, all the while protecting the heavily injured Lu Yuanxiang and the others. He had earned his respect at that. This Netherworld Academy teacher is still young but is so steady and capable. His powers are also above mine. How strange. Why haven't I heard of this person before? The teacher felt increasingly puzzled. With Yi Qing's young age, no one would doubt him even if he claimed to be a student. As young as he was, the way he handled crises was not at all inferior to an experienced teacher. Even the Flying Star Academy teacher himself had to admit that if he had been in the youth's shoes, he might not have handled things as well as him. "Wu Fengling, where did you get such a treasure?" The Flying Star Academy teacher's eyes widened when he saw Mu Ziying release several wooden birds into the hole. A puppet master. Chapter 24-24, Symbols, 2. The Flying Star Academy was on a different mainland from the Netherworld Academy, and it was where the Puppet Emperor resided. And so it was no surprise that the Flying Star Academy was familiar with puppet masters. The Netherworld Academy has a puppet master? The Flying Star Academy teacher was astonished. It should be pointed out that puppet masters were quite rare. Most wouldn't enter normal academies or sects as they had their own guilds, and most puppet masters would join one of those mysterious groups. Only a small number of puppet masters would be lured to join a major faction where they would hold a very high status. Puppet masters were very unique and extremely rare to the various factions. He never expected there to be a hidden puppet master inside Yi Qing's team. And the puppet master also looked very young. Just as the Flying Star Academy team was pondering over this, Mu Ziying already scanned the situation inside the hole. There were no living creatures inside. "You guys remain up here. I will go in to take a look first," Yi Qingtang instructed. Lu Yuanxiang felt worried. "Teacher Yi, the scene here looks very similar to when we encountered that monster. If I am not wrong, another monster must have burrowed out of this hole here. I am afraid it is not safe down there." Yi Qingtang shook her head. "Inger already surveyed the hole and there are no living creatures down there. Those monsters are far too powerful for any one of the teams to handle, and we don't have any teleportation talismans, so it won't be that easy to escape. We know nothing about the Wailing Well. What we lack the most now are clues." The timing of the appearance of these monsters was very strange. Based on what Yi Qingtang knew, these monsters had only emerged over the past couple of days. Not only that, quite a number had appeared over this period as well. Yi Qingtang had to take a look to see what the hell was going on. Said like that, Yi Qing's words sounded very logical, and so Lu Yuanxiang didn't raise any more objections. Soon after, Yi Qingtang jumped into the hole. Landing on the ground, it was pitch black everywhere. She lit a black flame which provided some light. The underground cave was bigger than what Yi Qingtang imagined. She discovered some palm-sized scales on the dirt floor. Those scales had a rough surface and were nearly half a finger-length thick. It looked like the monster had inadvertently shed those scales when it broke through the earth. Lu Yuanxiang and the others had encountered a monster. They didn't manage to see the entire monster, but they hadn't spotted any scales on what they saw. It was clear that this was a different monster. Meanwhile, the monster encountered by the Maple Knight Academy team was another different one. Currently, it looked like there were at least 3 different types of above-emperor-level monsters. This did not bode well for them. Yi Qingtang frowned slightly and continued to survey the area. Suddenly, she realized that the hardness of the ground beneath her feet was not quite right. It was not the softness of dirt but felt quite hard and solid. Shifting her flame downward, the ground lit up in front of her. She was stunned by what she saw. Beneath her feet were an array of strange symbols, stretching from where she stood and expanding to the entire cave. Due to the large area, Yi Qingtang could not see the entire pattern. She leaped into the air and unleashed a stream of black flames. The flames illuminated the entire underground cave. And those strange symbols instantly appeared before everyone's eyes. Chapter 24-25, Symbols, 3, These symbols, why do they look so familiar? Standing by the edge of the hole, Jing Zhe stared at the symbols. Where had he seen them before? He seemed to recall seeing the same symbols somewhere else. I also find them rather familiar. But I just can't remember at the moment. Yun Chen had the same feeling. I have definitely seen these symbols before. But where? Lei Yan scratched his head. Surprisingly, even Lei Yan felt like he had seen them before. The same feeling arose in Qin Feng, Mu Ziying and Nangong Lai, but Lu Yuanxiang and his team were left confused. They did not recognize those symbols at all. Teacher Lu, have you seen them before? Yun Chen asked Lu Yuanxiang. Lu Yuanxiang replied in the negative. He was feeling very puzzled. I remember. Mu Ziying's eyes lit up as if she recalled something. Where? Lei Yan asked. Mu Ziying replied, in the Evil Soul Forest. In that, Mu Ziying suddenly recalled that while they were in the Evil Soul Forest, they had seen these symbols inside Night Soul Beast's hibernation cave inside the Fiend Celestial Tomb. Realization immediately dawned upon Qin Feng and the others at Mu Ziying's words. Meanwhile, Lu Yuanxiang was startled by the mention of the Evil Soul Forest. The Evil Soul Forest? You guys went to the Evil Soul Forest? Gong Jinyun also looked at Mu Ziying in shock. Even their teammates Ran Mo and the rest were also shocked. It should be pointed out that the Evil Soul Forest was notorious for being an extremely dangerous place with night soul beasts and countless monsters within. They had only heard of that place but had never ventured there. But looking at the reactions of Mu Ziying and her group, it looked like they had gone there before. Mu Ziying looked at the faces of the others. Luckily she hadn't mentioned the Fiend Celestial Tomb. After all, they had not told anyone about Yi Qing bringing them to the Evil Soul Forest for training. At this moment, Yi Qingtang flew out from the hole. Her face was very grave. She had also realized the same thing as Mu Ziying and the others. A strong sense of foreboding arose in her heart when she realized the symbols in the hole were the same as the ones in the Fiend Celestial Tomb. Teacher Yi, how is it? Lu Yuanxiang asked. Yi Qingtang didn't answer immediately. Why were there such symbols inside the cave where the monster came from? Was there some linkage between the Fiend Celestial Tomb and this Wailing Well? For the moment, Yi Qingtang could not confirm anything. She had no idea if the appearance of these symbols was coincidental or did it mean something else. Teacher Lu, where is the place where you encountered your monster? Can you lead us there to take a look? Yi Qingtang asked. To confirm that the symbols were not just a coincidence, she had to take a look at another place where a monster emerged. Lu Yuanxiang was taken aback. He never expected Yi Qing to ask to take a look at where they encountered the monster. He was hesitant, but having observed Yi Qing during this period of time, Lu Yuanxiang knew that Yi Qing was wise beyond his years. "All right, I will take you there. But I cannot guarantee that the monster is not nearby." Yi Qingtang nodded. With Mu Ziying around, they would be able to avoid stumbling upon a monster unawares. Lu Yuanxiang led the way as the group headed toward where the first monster appeared. Meanwhile, the Flying Star Academy team had no idea what was going on. All they could do was follow the group ahead instinctively. Chapter 24-26, Symbols, 4. Before long, Lu Yuanxiang led the group to where his team encountered the monster. It was a wreck with the smell of blood mixed with a strange odor. The monster was no longer around. When the group arrived, it was eerily quiet. Deep pain and sorrow surfaced on the faces of Lu Yuanxiang's team when they saw the wreckage. It was here that they lost a teammate and the rest of them had nearly died. Meanwhile, Yi Qingtang searched through the debris and found the hole where the monster emerged from. Her face grew even grimmer when she saw the situation underground. There were the same symbols carved in the ground beneath. Yi Qingtang's suspicions had been confirmed. The appearance of these monsters and these symbols were probably linked and in a nefarious way. But what exactly did these symbols represent? Why had the same symbols appeared in the Fiend Celestial Tomb and the Wailing Well? Wen Qi, your teacher, is rather capable. Outside the Wailing Well, the academy leaders were gathered in the hall and watching the movements of the teams through the screens. During this period of time, they observed that the number of monsters had already far surpassed Yi Qing's estimations. They were unable to communicate with anyone inside. Meanwhile, Luo Sheng and the others, who had just entered the Wailing Well, had yet to meet with any team. As a result, those on the outside could not do anything but watch the events unfold. And Yi Qing's group had brought an unexpected piece of information to everyone. Most of the teams had perished after encountering the above Emperor-level monsters. Even though a lucky few had managed to escape, none of them dared to return to investigate the matter. In the end, it was Yi Qing who examined the two places where the monsters emerged and discovered the same strange-looking symbols. How courageous must one be to make such a move? Wen Qi also noted the appearance of the symbols in those two places. Does anyone know what those symbols are? Wen Qi asked. The crowd shook their heads. These symbols look very unfamiliar. We need to investigate further. The crowd believed that the appearance of those monsters was invariably linked to those symbols. But they had no idea what those symbols were. They sent men to research those symbols. Wen Qi, this Netherworld Academy teacher, is young and capable. It looks like he knows something about those symbols. The Heaven Dome Academy vice president spoke up. It's a pity that we are unable to communicate with them. Otherwise, we might be able to get more clues. Wen Qi sighed. The Heaven Dome Academy vice president was feeling rather helpless. Never mind, going by his reaction, he must have some idea. Perhaps he can find more clues. The crowd nodded. Yi Qingtang appeared to be the most clear-headed person amongst all the teams. Everyone at present was no fool. They could see that Yi Qing was looking for ways to leave the Wailing Well. This point alone was already far beyond the progress of the teams from their own academies. Yi Qingtang could vaguely feel that there was something wrong with this team competition. Before she had time to ponder over the newly gathered clues, Mu Ziying's face shifted from a warning by one of the wooden birds. Boss, bad news. Something is heading our way. And it is very powerful. Mu Ziying could clearly feel her wooden bird being completely destroyed even before the thing came close. Whatever it was definitely not one of the other teams. Chapter 24-27, Death, 1. Just as Mu Ziying finished her warning, shocked cries could be heard from the Flying Star Academy team following behind them. In an instant, the Flying Star Academy team fled toward them like a bunch of lunatics. Monster! Monster! One of the Flying Star Academy teenagers was clearly terrified. His face was pale as he sprinted forward. Yi Qingtang and the others turned to see a massive black shadow rapidly approaching them. Before they could get a good look, Lu Yuanxiang's face paled as if he detected something. Yes, our monster looked something like that. Teacher Yi, we have to escape now. Lu Yuanxiang was unable to see the monster clearly, but that oppressive aura was very familiar. That black figure gave him a feeling that was very similar to the monster that first attacked them, yet somewhat different. It was yet another above Emperor level monster coming toward them. No one expected the sudden appearance of this monster. Without any hesitation, Yi Qingtang led her group to escape. Even she would not be able to handle an above Emperor level monster. Lu Yuanxiang's team was seriously injured and could not move fast. Lei Yan and the others each carried one of them and fled together with the Flying Star Academy folks. But even though they tried their best, the distance between the black figure and them narrowed continuously. The ground beneath their feet vibrated constantly as a fierce wind blasted their ears. They felt like their eardrums were going to burst. Did you have a clear look at that thing? Yi Qingtang asked when she caught up with the Flying Star Academy teacher. The teacher looked extremely grim as he instinctively nodded. But then he shook his head. No. I didn't have a good look. That thing was too big. We couldn't see its full body. I just remember, it was all black, and it looked like it was covered by multiple worms. The Flying Star Academy teacher shuddered at the memory. That thing looked like it was created by countless long, black worms entangled together. Those black worms were still wriggling and just the sight of it made one feel like throwing up. Yi Qingtang furrowed her brows slightly. Going by what he described, it was a different monster from the one Lu Yuanxiang's team encountered. Yi Qingtang tried to make use of the dense forest to shake off the monster, but the monster was too large and its height far surpassed the tops of the trees in the Wailing Well. From its high vantage point, it could see the direction they were fleeing. Even more startling to Yi Qingtang was the fact that that monster kept pursuing them without any intention of leaving. Why? Yi Qingtang found this very strange. Lu Yuanxiang's team suffered grievous injuries because they happened to be at the spot where the monster burrowed out of the ground. Although the monster attacked them then, it did not pursue them after they fled. But this monster behind them seemed to treat them as prey, chasing them relentlessly. Furthermore, Yi Qingtang realized that the Flying Star Academy team was the first to encounter this monster. Although they didn't get a full look at it, the teacher still managed to see the worms on its body. It could be deduced how close they must have been. Chapter 24-28, Death, 2, The monster was above Emperor level and with that close distance, the Flying Star Academy folks should not have been able to flee. But, the monster didn't kill them then. Why? Yi Qingtang just felt that something was not quite right, and she glanced at those behind. Lei Yan and the others were carrying Lu Yuanxiang and his team. Even with the extra baggage, they were not slowed down as they held Divine Lord level abilities. But the distance between them and the monster was not wide enough. It would soon catch up with them. Once that happened, the monster's above Emperor level power was not something they could hold themselves against. Split up. Yi Qingtang suddenly ordered. Lei Yan and his group were stunned. Split up. Yi Qingtang felt that this monster had already latched onto them as targets. Unable to defend themselves, they could only try their best to ensure as many survivors as possible. The teenagers were completely frenzied now. Unable to think clearly for themselves, they instinctively followed Yi Qing's orders. This was like all past incidents. Their boss would never issue a wrong command. The group immediately split up. And the monster behind them chose its target. Yi Qingtang saw the distance between the monster and her narrowing. A bitter smile tugged at the corners of her lips. It looked like her conjecture was right. This monster was targeting a certain person in the group, and she was the lucky chosen one. Yi Qingtang had no idea why this monster would choose to pursue her, but she heaved a sigh of relief. At least her brats would be safe. Yi Qingtang soon detected a powerful force coming at her from behind. A massive black shadow completely engulfed her and a gigantic monster appeared behind Yi Qingtang. As the Flying Star Academy teacher said, that monster was beyond descriptive words. It was made up of countless black worms entangled together and wriggling endlessly. It looked like a mass of worms stuck together. I am so lucky. Yi Qingtang looked at the monster behind her. She could already feel the powerful aura exuded by it. It was far beyond her own level. An above-emperor-level existence was able to crush her within seconds. Since Yi Qingtang had been reborn, she had imagined all the different ways she might die. But she never imagined dying with this false identity and in such a strange place. She had never seen such a monster before and didn't know how to handle it. As stipulated by the rules, she had left all her special artifacts outside the Wailing Well. She didn't even have her mirror of illusions with her. Now, it seemed like certain death was near. The massive monster expanded non-stop as if it wanted to swallow the entire area. Suddenly, a blood-colored hole opened in the monster, and black fangs lined the blood-red hole. It was the monster's mouth. A black shadow shot out of its jaws. The black shadow was very powerful. All vegetation it made contact with instantly turned to ashes. It was too fast. Yi Qingtang was able to see the black shadow rushing toward her, but her body had no time to react. She was doomed. Chapter 24-29, Death, 3, Yi Qingtang's heart sank. But just as the black shadow approached Yi Qingtang, a chilly feeling suddenly arose from her wrist area. Multiple streams of black mist surged out from her wrist. Within seconds, the black mist clashed with the black shadow from the monster. As the mist swirled around, Yi Qingtang could smell a thick evil stench as well as the faint wails of malicious ghosts. In the next second, the black shadow looked like it had been destroyed by the black mist. It disappeared without a trace. The black mist also gradually dissipated. Yi Qingtang could vaguely see a blurred figure inside the black mist. Before it completely dissipated, it bowed at her before vanishing. Crack, a cracking sound rang out from Yi Qingtang's wrist. It was like something had broken. Yi Qingtang looked down and saw her 9 souls ring falling to the ground in pieces. 9 souls ring. This was something that Yi Qingtang had inadvertently placed on her wrist while in the Temple of Shadows. The 9 souls ring became invisible after being worn and Yi Qingtang had forgotten about its existence. This was a precious artifact left behind by the Holy Lord of Shadows. Yi Qingtang never expected the long-forgotten 9 souls ring to save her life at such a crucial moment. Able to withstand the attack of an above-emperor-level monster. It could be inferred just how powerful the 9 souls ring was. Even so, the 9 souls ring was now broken and Yi Qingtang had lost this life-preserving trump card. Taking advantage of the impasse, Yi Qingtang poured all her energy and focus into her legs, just wishing to escape from this massive monster. But an above-emperor-level power was not something which Yi Qingtang could run from. Within seconds, the monster appeared in front of Yi Qingtang. Countless black shadows shot out of its opened maw toward Yi Qingtang. Yi Qingtang's eyes reflected the countless black shadows, all looking like they wanted to completely tear her apart. Shock was the only thing she could feel. It was as if she could feel the approach of imminent death, and her blood seemed to freeze. Boom! A loud boom rang out as the countless black shadows landed. All the vegetation in the area where Yi Qingtang stood was disintegrated. A massive black hole appeared. Several figures standing not far off stiffened. Boss! Lei Yan and his group had split up per Yi Qing's instructions. But halfway, they realized that the monster was not pursuing them anymore. Instead, it headed in Yi Qing's direction. Almost simultaneously, they realized something was not right and hurried over. But the moment they came near, they saw Yi Qing engulfed by the countless black shadows. And after the black shadows dissipated, the entire area was in ruins. Only a charred black hole remained. After seeing the black hole, the monster appeared to have no intention of staying. It continued traveling forward. It was like its only target had been Yi Qing. It had no interest in the others at all. As they watched the monster's departing back profile, Lei Yan and the others looked like they had lost their souls. They stood there in a daze, unable to move at all. Chapter 2430, Death, 4, Bo. Boss, Mu Ziying collapsed to the ground, tears streaming down her face. Impossible. Boss cannot possibly die, Lei Yan shook his head in disbelief. No matter what, he could not accept what he had just witnessed. Their boss was omnipotent. How could he possibly be dead? Qin Feng clenched his fists as blood dripped down from his palms. I don't believe it. Nangong Lai snapped out of his pain. He charged toward the huge black hole. In the next second, Yun Chen, Qin Feng, Lei Yan, Mu Ziying and Jing Zhe also flew over. Like crazed people, they searched the black hole for traces of Yi Qing. It was as if they wouldn't admit that Yi Qing had died. Lu Yuanxiang stood by the side, watching the scene with a pained expression. Only someone who had personally encountered an above-emperor-level monster would understand just how terrifying its power was. Yi Qing was very strong and could be considered an above-average practitioner among his peers. But, an above-emperor-level monster. How could one defend against that? In fact, Lu Yuanxiang found himself tearing up. He had realized too late that Yi Qing was a very promising youth. But now, this kind of talent had died in a team competition that had spiraled out of control. Song Yanhan gaped. Looking at the crazed actions of Lei Yan and his group, his own eyes turned red. Without a word, he also went forward. As little hope as there was, he kept his thoughts to himself and helped Lei Yan's group search for traces of Yi Qing. It would be good even if all they could find was a corpse. It would offer some closure. Outside the Wailing Well, Wen Qi collapsed in his chair when he saw Yi Qing engulfed by the black shadows. His face was pale and he looked as if he had aged 10 years in a second. Yi Qing had died. How could this be? The other academy leaders also couldn't help sighing. From what they saw earlier, this young Netherworld Academy teacher was the most clear-headed person inside. And he seemed to have discovered some clues. If he had more time, he might have been able to get closer to the truth. A pity, the crowd could see that Yi Qing was the backbone of the two Netherworld Academy teams. It was because of him that these two teams managed to escape countless dangers. With Yi Qing's death, his team was like a flock of sheep without their shepherd, completely immersed in intense sorrow. Meanwhile, Lu Yuanxiang was grievously injured and unable to hold the fort. Trapped in such a dangerous environment, the chances of survival for these two teams had become increasingly small. Vice President, a Netherworld Academy teacher standing beside Wen Qi tried to comfort him when he saw his pain. Wen Qi felt like his chest had been ripped apart. He had allowed Yi Qing to join the Netherworld Academy and he had eagerly looked forward to the youth's future progress. But now, this promising youth had died, just like that. Is there any news from President Wu? Wen Qi gritted his teeth before asking. Yi Qing Tang had already been prepared to receive death, but she didn't feel the expected pain. The darkness before her eyes suddenly swirled and in the next second, a ray of light floated in front of her. When Yi Qing Tang opened her eyes, she was stunned by what she saw. Chapter 2431, Eavesdropping, 1. Somehow, the scene before her was not the Wailing Well but a blue-green valley. An indescribable smell permeated the air. Yi Qingtang felt that this smell was somewhat familiar. She could clearly remember being attacked by that above-emperor-level monster. Why had she suddenly appeared in this valley? Just as Yi Qingtang was feeling befuddled, sounds of fighting drifted over. Yi Qingtang instinctively hid behind a large tree, and several figures suddenly flashed before her eyes. The figures left Yi Qingtang stunned by the sight. Several demons were sprinting vigorously. A heavily injured demon was desperately running in front, with several behind in close pursuit. They appeared intent on catching it. And that demon being chased looked exceptionally familiar to Yi Qingtang. Who? Yi Qingtang was taken aback. Wasn't this who from the East Demon faction in the Cursed Land? What was going on? Could it be that she had returned to the Cursed Land? Since Yi Qingtang pretended to be a demon to stay hidden in the East Demon faction and inadvertently obtained the deity Ocean, the East faction had been pursued by the other demon camps. Thereafter, Yi Qingtang had used the deity Ocean to leave the Cursed Land. She never imagined that she would return one day. Who was still being chased, and this meant that the other demons had not stopped pursuing the East faction. Could it be? The deity Ocean inside her sensed the danger she was in and teleported her here. Yi Qingtang could not understand what had happened. In the next moment, she felt dizzy and the valley disappeared before her eyes to be replaced by a bone-chilling cold. When Yi Qingtang opened her eyes again, it was dark and blurry. It was like there was a layer of frozen ice before her. Engulfed by the chilly air, Yi Qingtang could feel the deity Ocean inside her vibrate, its power gradually fading away. It looked like she had guessed correctly. At the moment of imminent death, the deity Ocean had been activated and she was transported back to the Cursed Land. But now, where was she? Yi Qingtang was not sure. After the deity Ocean transported her out of the Cursed Land, she was now trapped beneath a lake that had frozen over. Thick ice layers had formed over the surface of the lake under which she now was trapped. The strangest thing was when Yi Qingtang looked downward, there was no water around her at all. It was just an empty space and she was floating in the darkness. It was pitch black beneath her, with no end in sight. Just as Yi Qingtang wanted to try and break through the ice, two figures suddenly appeared by the side of the lake. Yi Qingtang immediately halted when she noticed those two figures. One of them was Jin Qianyang, the Heaven Dome Academy teacher whom Yi Qingtang had met in passing in the North Hall. A slender, delicate-looking teenage girl stood beside Jin Qianyang. She was not wearing the uniform of the Heaven Dome Academy, but that of the East Tomb Academy. The East Tomb Academy was not well known in the Second Domain. They were not at all comparable to elite schools like the Heaven Dome Academy, but in this year's Inter-Academy competition, the East Tomb Academy had suddenly performed outstandingly. The sole reason was this teenage girl, who had won the top position in the individual martial arts competition. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.